Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. And before we get started, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast, and like and share our Facebook page, and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Joining me for today's live discussion on all things cricket is my good friend and friend of the channels, Gabe, the night watchman from Cricket for Americans. Gabe, it's great to have you back. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be back. Talk some cricket with you as usual. Here in the East Coast, it's about 30 to 9 right now, 40 to 9. So, the Night Watchman. We were talking about right before we jumped on that. When we first started watching cricket and got into cricket, we're talking about close to 3 years ago at this point. People would just put Night Watchman in the chat. I didn't know what it was, but I just said it sounded cool. And our very first test match our very first cricket match that Nick and I ever saw was West Indies versus England. And because of the time difference, it was like 3 a.m. here, man. So I'm up late, you know what I mean, ready to watch it. And of course, there was a rain delay. Come on, it's England. It was a rain delay. And people were like, now you're a true cricket fan. Sat through like a 4-hour rain delay or whatever, And again, for me, it'd be watching it, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to stream it and watch it. And that's why I gave myself the nickname the Night Watchman. But I'm sure if I was a cricket player, I'd probably be a Night Watchman as well. Just I don't got a lot of game with me.
Yeah. So for everyone who's joining us on this live stream today, if you have any questions on any of the topics that we're discussing on today's live stream, do let us know in the chat. We'll try and answer them to the best of our ability, because there's a lot of topics to talk about, and we're going to have a great time and just talk cricket. That's why we're here. So let's have some fun. So first of all, Gabe, let's talk about Test cricket and the oldest format of the game, of course, Test cricket. Now, I know that the first series that you watched of cricket ever, and the first match you watched was a Test match between England and the West Indies.
Right.
And you fell in love with Test cricket from that moment on. What is it about Test cricket, Gabe, that made you get drawn to this format that all of us cricket lovers love to watch and still do to this day?
I think that for me, what I love about Test cricket is that it's it's a test of wills. It really, because one of the things I don't like about many sports is you're up against the clock. Okay. And especially if it's like a 1 day match, not a 1 day match, but just a 1 day match or a 4 or 5 hour match, you're up against the clock. But even in boxing, I used to box when I was younger. I can't tell you how many times I'm in there and I've coasted through 4 or 5 rounds and I'm just looking up at the clock. Like, one of the greatest of all time. And I hate saying that because, he's not my favorite person in the world, but Floyd Mayweather Jr., you'd see him in boxing matches, popping people, and he'd tie him up, look up at the clock, how many minutes do I got to go? You know what I mean? Like, you're not, you're just, abiding your time, so to speak. You know what I mean? And Test cricket's different. It's a war of attrition. It really is. And so you really got to go out there and earn that victory. And, I never understood the excitement of a draw, you know what I mean, until I saw one. And I was just, to this day, one of my favorite matches, again, it happened in the Ashes. We're talking about Australia and England. And it was the only match that Australia couldn't win. And you've got them throwing the gauntlet out there. Smudge is bowling. They threw Smudge out there to bowl. It was something about lighting, I guess, because they couldn't bowl the fast bowler, something to that effect. But you got Jimmy Anderson on one side and Stuart Broad on the other, who had been left off earlier in the series. And they're battling, and they did not let England get whitewashed. And even as a fan of Australia, I thought that was just so gutsy. And I think that that's what it is. Is for you to play Test, you've just got to have gumption. You know what I mean? Because you're going to go out there and you will be tested. Your soul will be tested. There's an old adage in boxing, right? Everybody can fight until they get hit. You know what I mean? Everybody can fight. You look good in the gym, but once you get hit, it's like, oh, well, everybody, yeah, of course, you look good in the nets. He's a net bowler. He looks good. Or, he looks good batting the cages until the other guy's throwing at you, until you've been out there for, 4 or 5 days and you're exhausted. And, there was the one, who was it? I think, was it Don Bradman? No. The Australian, batsman that was absolutely dead, like just running between the wickets, lasted, and then they ended up taking them
Dean
to the
Jones.
Dean Jones. Yeah, I remember Nick and I did that. Had to go to the hospital and get hydrated after that because
Yeah.
that's what it is. That's what it is that I love about Test, that you really have to lay it all out as an athlete. And it's not just, oh, I'm going to play the time game and then manipulate stats that way.
Yeah, that was a gutsy knock from Dean Jones. And well, back then it was called Madras, now called Chennai. For that tie test in 1986, there's only been two, and both of them were pretty special. Obviously, the other one was against your West Indies, Gabe, in Brisbane in 1960-61, which was a memorable match for everyone who remembers that game. It is a great format, and I fell in love with cricket by watching Test cricket on the TV, as most people in Australia did. You wake up early, and you watch a Test match. You listen to the famous commentators of Richie Benaud, Bill Lawry, Tony Gregg, and Ian Chappell. Sadly, not the case anymore in Australia. But for me, as someone who's in their 20s, I still feel like a little kid who gets up early, and I feel like that every summer. Watch the Test match, and we enjoy what is going to be a great Test match, hopefully over the next 5 days. But you say what you like about it, Gabe, but what do you dislike about it? There's always things that people like and dislike about it. What are the things you don't like about Test cricket that really annoy you, that you want changed or improved in the format?
Oh my gosh. And it's funny because I got so much respect and love for you, bro. But first and foremost, the umpiring. It seems like it just gets worse and worse. It does. I'm sorry. It does. You see such bad calls. And whether obviously in T20, you see some atrocious calls. But even Test, you'll see some bad calls. And, it just drives you crazy. It just drives you crazy. So I think that for me, and that's with most sports. Now I get it. It's a tough job. It really, really is. But if you got the technology in order to fix it, then fix it. Get it right. And that's always the way I've looked at it. So to me, I think that's one of the things that annoys me, But then again, every format of cricket has that a challenge. I would say the next thing that kind of not that I don't like about cricket, but I don't choose my words carefully. So I speak how I speak. It is what it is. Good luck. It's a boys' club, all right, and
Yeah.
you've got the gatekeepers where you've got Australia, the West Indies, England, and you've got so many other nations that are playing cricket. But like for instance, USA just had a pretty big win the other day against Scotland. We were talking about that before we came on. USA is not going to play the big boys, Australia or India or England, because they don't have a test team, right? And there's so many good nations and associate nations that don't have a test team, but because of the structure of cricket, those other nations don't have the funds, don't have the money. And I would just say the way it's allocated, where it's just basically revolves around the big three or four, and you know what I mean? Like I think it hurts the game to a certain extent because more people might get into it if more nations were able to afford, if the money was distributed more evenly, so that you could get a Oman or a USA is far away from it, but get those associate nations in there playing. Why wouldn't they? Of course, they would. People from those places would tune in more if they got their test teams, if their nations had test teams.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just about the structures domestically and the money,
Right.
basically. And it's like Ireland, Afghanistan, who've got test status now. They're not playing enough test matches as it is
Right.
at the moment.
It's expensive, man. It's expensive, and then
It is. And sorry, go on.
no. I said it's expensive, and then you also have to get those other big uh uh test cricketing nations to want to travel there. You know what I mean? Because I know obviously with Afghanistan we know the situation, but Ireland and other places, does the Indian want to travel to Ireland? You know what I mean? Can you? Who was it that canceled the test match? Remember Australia had to cancel a test match
South
And
Africa. South Africa.
oh, okay, yeah, and people are livid, man. You know what I mean? Because there's just so much money so behind it, and to throw one of these series on, and I think that if you know Test is to survive, they've got to introduce and continue to open up the world of cricket to other nations. So they just got to make it easier for other nations to not just have their test teams, but to hold these test matches. They've got to, maybe they're mandated. All right, in college football, for instance, and this is an American sport, but even if you're a big powerhouse school, you're mandated to have to play certain games in conference and certain games out of conference, so that you may go to a smaller area or a smaller school, but it grows the game. It grows. Australia will bring their fandom to a Oman, to a USA, to one of those smaller nations. So I think that honestly, that would probably be the next. I would say the next step I'd like to see Test cricket to take. Sadly, I don't see it happening. But if you ask me what bothers me, the fact that just the little guys like us, USA, just are kind
Yeah.
of kept out of Test.
Yeah,
And
it
I see
is.
my people's in the chat. What's going on there, Jihan? What's going on? The direct hit. What's going on, peoples? Much love. Thanks for joining. Yes, Rip Dean Jones. Rip Dean Jones.
Yes. Yeah, Dean Jones. Yeah. One of a kind cricketer. Had a short Test career. Only played 50 odd Tests for Australia, but yeah, he was a great player. Sadly missed by all. As you were saying, Gabe, obviously, as we talk about Test cricket here, and if you've got any questions, everyone, we would like to have that in the chat. If you can provide some questions, if you want me and Gabe to answer your questions, we're more than happy to in this live stream today, this live discussion. It's something that Ravi Shastri said, Gabe, that he wanted to take away teams from Test cricket in terms of the competitiveness and not the one-sided nature of it. Like, for example, if Australia versus Zimbabwe, it's a one-sided match. And he said probably have 6 Test teams and take away the others and probably, do that. I didn't agree with what he said there because you're not really growing or developing Test cricket in that way. Because you've got 12 Test playing nations, you've given Afghanistan Islands Test status. Why take it away from them because they're not being competitive? The only way they're going to get better is by playing the top-ranked nations. You are going to have some games where you're going to lose badly, but you'll learn a lot from it. So what are your thoughts on that, Gabe? Should we do that or stay away from what he suggested?
If we did that, would we have a powerhouse India today? I mean, go back and put that same mentality to India, who's one of the dominant nations today. That was not always the case, right? I remember watching the film '83 with Nick, and there's the one scene where Kapil Dev goes in, and I know that was ODI different standard, but still he goes in and he's like, "What are you here? We're here to win the World Cup." You're like, "You're here to win the World Cup?" Like they looked at him like shocked, like because it was just one of those things that was just unheard of. Or even go back further. I know somebody in the comment later was talking about how abysmal my West Indies attack was. You're absolutely right, West Indies. But go back 20 years and say that. You know what I mean? Go back to the Four Horsemen. You know what I mean? Like it goes through cycles. It goes through cycles, and you have a situation where right now you've got a few dominant teams or whatever, but everything goes in cycles, and the only way other nations will get better is, to your point, playing up to competition. If you don't get to play up to competition, then you never have to push yourself. I mean, I would say it's the same thing where even in domestic sports here, for instance, in America, Golden State Warriors were a joke. I'm not sure if you follow the NBA. Golden State Warriors turned into a dynasty. They won like 4 championships in 5 years. So just because teams are bad now doesn't mean they're always going to be bad. I mean, if they're always going to be, India was bad. Are they bad now? You know what I mean? Like, just saying. So you've got to give those nations an opportunity to grow. And to your point, the only way they're going to get better is by playing, better competition. If you kind of keep them in the bubble, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with that comment. It's like there's the boys club and the the top nations and then everybody else, and then it's like you guys don't matter. That don't make any sense. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
you're really hurting your viewership, and you're hurting potential revenue streams by doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you mentioned that boys' club, the big three: Australia, India, England, and they're probably not doing as much as they should in world cricket at the moment, like helping out in that. It's a big problem. What do you think of the World Test Championship, Gabe? It was brought in to add context and relevance to Test cricket, and it's been great, I think. What do you reckon? Has it done Test cricket a good thing to have it?
It's like everything else, right? It fixes one problem but creates another. So one of the things I love about test is that, again, it's a true test of wills, so to speak. You know, God, Nick would love it because I'm not, no pun intended, but there it goes. But think about it. In tests, for the most part, even if it's a short series, you're going to play two tests, right? We got, of course, Australia going to be playing my West Indies later on. But for the most part, you at least got a three tests. And the Test World Championship was just one test match. So, it kind of like, while it was still tests and, you played over, 3, 4 days, 5 days, whatever, anybody can win one test match. Things could break your way. Weather could break your way, Again, win the series. Win the series. That's a different animal. And
Yeah.
I think that in order to really give it the authenticity of test, it's got to be at least 3 matches. It does. And I know it's going to take time to play. So what? So fit it in the schedule. So what? Fit it in the schedule. But having it just it's basically a ODI, right? A 1-day test match, basically. And I get it that it's, you're going to play over a few days, but it shouldn't be just one test match. It should be a test series because that's what you put the weight on. We don't just play one test match unless everything else was played that way, but we don't, right?
Yeah.
We play series. So, I mean, that's my opinion. With that being said, I think that it gives teams something to play for. It makes these meaningless, quote unquote, mundane matches that sometimes you're like, oh, really? We got to go over there. It makes it matter. It'll make an Australia say, okay, yeah, I better not cancel that score to whoever play there because you need those points. So it makes every series matter. And I think it's going to ensure that the majority of test matches do get played and that teams just don't end up canceling because, what's the penalty? Doesn't fit into the schedule. Maybe they got some injured players, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only thing I will say with it is that it doesn't have all 12 teams. It only has 9, and you don't play everyone in one cycle, home and away. So you do miss out on playing other teams. It's got a lot of teething problems there, but it's doing great stuff for test cricket, and it's adding those context and relevance, which is needed. And teams have something to play for. And with the final, yes, it would be nice if it was like a playoff sort of situation, like sort of like in the NBA or something like that. They do playoffs, like final series or whatever.
Right.
But they've decided the ICC, it's a one-off test, neutral venue, whoever performs well over the 5 days. In the case of the last final, which we have 6 because it rained in Southampton. Not surprising in England, always rains. It even bucketed down against England and South Africa in this test match that just concluded recently. But it's something that the ICC may need to look at in future cycles. We've got some questions here for you, Gabe. The direct hit has said, hi, Gabe. Can this South Africa attack be lethal like it was with Steyn, Morkel, and Philander? It's a pretty good attack with Nortje, Janssen, Rabada.
Rabada. Ooh, Rabada. Kagiso Rabada. Now, you know what's funny? Kagiso Rabada, Nick and I first we didn't discover it. Actually, we did. We're his agents. But Nick and I first started watching him in the IPL, right? And dude, this guy was throwing gas. He was just nasty. And I dare to say he is a better test bowler than he is a T20 bowler. You know what I mean? And Rabada won the purple cap in the IPL because he's a scout taker, man. This guy is absolutely nasty. But I think Test gives him the opportunity to take advantage of what I think is one of his strengths, and it's how durable the guy is, how big he is. He's not gonna get worn out, man. He's not gonna get worn out. I remember, and you can see it with a lot of guys, right? Jofra Archer. One of the reasons why people knew Archer was not going to be a test bowler is because give him the first, 10, 15 overs, he's going to be throwing darts, lights out. He can't give you 20 overs in it. He just can't. You know what I mean? He starts going down. He gets pumped for runs later on. You know what I mean? He just doesn't have that stamina. You know what I mean? You can tell his build is a lot slighter. Rabada, he's thick. He's muscular. He's, you know what I mean? He's built to go the deep into those deep overs and give you 30, 40 overs over that test match. And he's impressive. He's an impressive boy, man. And I like Rabada, Marco Jansen. Marco Jansen is funny because we also watched him first in the IPL and T20, and we knew him from there. And I was like, this guy sucks. But there's a difference again between T20 and the limited formats and tests. Case in point, Stuart Broad got pumped for 6 sixes, against Yuvraj Singh in the IPL. I mean, Stuart Broad is a legend. Stuart Broad is gonna, go down and isn't he the second leading wicket taker of all time for England? I'm pretty sure it's Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad. So it's a different animal. I'm impressed. And the last thing I got to say about that, and I'm gonna ask your question. I'm gonna ask you. People were excited about baseball, right? And listen, it looked good for a minute. They beat who they beat? They beat New Zealand. They beat
India in that one-off
India.
test.
In that one-off test match, they beat India. I mean, they was looking good until South Africa. Woo! They got cooked. They didn't even need a second inning. And again, everybody's going to say, well, 326. Look at the score. That's not a big score. I saw a test match. I'll never forget. It was South Africa versus, it wasn't New Zealand. It was South Africa versus Sri Lanka, maybe. I can't remember who it was. But anyways, first innings, right? They put up 400 runs. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to get smacked. South Africa comes back, puts up 600, 1,000 runs in the first, innings of this test match. You're like, holy crap. So really, 300 is not a lot. 300 is not a lot. So to me, while people are going to talk about the score and South Africa's scoring, I'm going to talk about South Africa's bowling. Holy cow. Rabada with a 5-wicket haul. We talked about it. Even Luengen Gidi, who loves getting pumped, was out there and was decent. He even had a maiden over, no wickets, but he didn't get pumped. Economy rate. Marco Jansen with 2 wickets. Norkia. I mean, the bowling was absolutely vicious. And if you're England, you're thinking, hey, 328's not bad. I mean, it's not like we went out and gave up 400 or 500 runs. But to get bowled out both times for under 200, what was it? First time it was 165. The second time it was 149. Bowled out each time. Come on, that just can't happen. And I think that it speaks a lot for the bowling of South Africa. And once again, it talks about some of the glaring issues in with England, and that's the batting. And that even goes back to the Ashes. Wasn't it Jimmy Anderson who called out? Was it?
It was Stuart Broad, I think.
Stuart Broad at the time. Yeah. Stuart Broad called out Joe Root at the time when they were, getting smacked at the Ashes, and he was like, the bowling's not the problem. We're doing our job. Guys getting cooked.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like, we're doing our part. The bowling's doing their part to hold South Africa to 328, whatever. That's not. But you can't go out there in both innings get bowled out for under 200. That's just that's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is. I think they've already crossed the line, I think, with baseball now. Ben Stokes talked about we haven't really touched the line yet. I think they did. Now, South Africa bowled well. The ball swung a bit. It seemed a bit. They're a lot quicker than England bowlers. And England, when you get bowled out for, 100 or so in the first innings, you're behind already. And South Africa had a big first innings lead of 161 or something like that. So you're always behind. And that's why they lost by an innings and 12 runs England, because you can't come back from that. And South Africa always had the ascendancy. So I think Brendan McCullum said it's not time for panic yet, he said after the game. He said, we don't need to overreact. But Dean Elgar had some fighting words before the series. He said, this Bazball thing is ridiculous or whatever. Yeah. And then Ben Stokes said, you mind your own business. And there are some few words exchanged between the two captains before the series.
I love it.
But yeah, it is. The question is it going to be sustainable? That is, can you keep doing it outside of England, like in the subcontinent on a turning track? Probably not. Yeah. You have to balance it with game awareness and bat responsibly. Right. You know, the ball's doing a bit, so balance it with defense, then attack, and then put them under pressure. England just, Ben Stokes, he's ever since they adopted this method, he hasn't really been batting well. He's just gone out there just batting recklessly. He's much better than that, So he'll need to have a look.
And while it benefits some players, because I would say there's some players that just, they've got it. That's case in point. Rishabh Pant, right, from India. The guy cannot play conservatively. That's just not what he does. He gets himself out when he tries to play conservatively. Let him go out there and take his crazy shots and reverse sweeps and helicopter shots. He's going to do what he can do, okay? And even a guy like Johnny Bairstow, I think he thrives more under a more relaxed atmosphere. He's not worrying about defending. He's looking to play his shots. But other than that, for the most part, you've got to defend. You've got to play conservatively, take your shots when they're there in tests specifically. And you can't just have guys throwing away their wickets willy-nilly. You know what I mean? And that's just, you're right. I don't think it's sustainable. I mean, there should be a countdown clock or a prediction clock. How long till McCullum gets the axe? You know what I mean? I doubt that it's going to happen. I mean, it's come on.
He's there for 4 years. So he's not going any time.
How long was Silverwood there for? If I'm not mistaken, he still had some time left on that contract before they axed him. So
probably, I think he was around in 2019, and he got sacked after the Ashes. So
just say it.
Yeah, yeah. So it will be a matter of time before they can, keep it up. But the honeymoon period doesn't last forever. Whenever there's a new coach, isn't there, Gabe? Whenever teams have a new coach, they have that honeymoon period, and they think, oh, everything's good. We're winning. The English media were up and about. They're saying, oh, we're back again, and then all of a sudden back down to earth. It didn't last long.
Think about JL, man. You know what I mean? Like, I was shocked, JL, and I've never been the biggest fan of JL. You know that, okay? And this goes back to me being a fan of the series, the excellent docu-series, The Test, on Amazon Prime. If you haven't watched it, go ahead and watch it. It's amazing. And they bring in JL, and JL, to me, is one of those old school coaches that honestly I couldn't play for, right? His hard nose, his nose on, just the way he is. But he took Australia from some of the darkest times to respectability, to winning a T20 World Cup, to, you know what I mean? Like, and then he went back. Yeah, and an Ashes series where you whitewash. Come on, let's be honest. There was that unbelievable stand by England and Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad at the end, but it was a whitewash, right? It was 4-0 with one tie in there. It could have been 5-0 easily. So, and then he gets sacked after that. I'm like, you know what I mean? So, you just don't know. You just don't know. So, yes, I'm sure Baz has, let's be honest. McCullum's probably got 2 years to try to put his imprint on this team. But 2 years goes by rather quickly. And if you see more ugly losses like this, and this is, by the way, what people were predicting. They said, listen, basketball is going to lead to a lot of ugly one-inning losses where England's going out and beaten by an innings and 20, 30 runs because you cannot play that aggressive, mentality. And, somebody, I remember I was watching, I logged in, and somebody was talking about, this is normally where you're down and you're chasing, like you said, 160, right? Ugly already. You're not just thinking about, oh, let's go out. You might be thinking about the draw. You might be thinking about, let's play slowly to try to avoid the follow-on, to try to get to, and There was none of that. There was absolutely none of that. And you with this, you're not going to see too many draws for sure. You're not going to see too many draws, and I think that's where it's going to hurt England the most because that'll hurt in the point standings.
Yeah, we've got a question here from the Sports Breakdown. Hi, Powen, hope you're well. I've been on the Sports Breakdown many times before, so go check out Powen. He does tremendous work there on Sri Lankan cricket, but also cricket in general. He says, hi, Jack and Gabe. Hope you're doing good. We're doing well, Powen. Hope you're well. Can Jimmy Anderson get at least 750 wickets before he retires with the way he's going? I'll open it up to you, Gabe, before I respond to that. He's 40 years old. He's just turned 40.
Jimmy Anderson's the GOAT, man. Jimmy Anderson's the GOAT. And I think the thing about Jimmy is that he keeps himself fit, first and foremost. And because he relies more on the swing and the seam of the ball as opposed to just, sheer pace, he can still take wickets effectively. He's a smart bowler. Even though I don't like the rest policy, the fact that England does rest him will also help, extend this tail end of his career. 750 wickets, a lot of wickets, man. It's a lot of wickets. He's what, at 7? Last time I checked, he's like
30. He's at 640, I think, wickets. Or
No,
nearly
no.
6. No, I think he's past 650, I think.
Is it? I got it. Oh, yeah. Because they had 1,100 combined. So when so Jimmy had 600, Broad had 500 going into last year. So he's at like 650. That's what, close to another 100 wickets. He'd have to play at least.
He played nearly 173 tests, nearly 180 tests.
He'd have to play at least another 2 years. Could he do it? Yeah. I mean, there's athletes that have played well into their 40s. Right now, we've got them. Tom Brady, bro, is about to start at 45 years old in the NFL. That's unheard of. There's only been I don't think I think he's the oldest quarterback to ever start. I know he's the oldest quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl because he won it 2 years ago at like 42 or 43.
Yeah.
But 45 years old? Are you kidding me, man? That's insane. But to answer your question, I hope he does it. It'd be great for the books. It'd be good for the history books.
From an Australian point of view, I hope he doesn't because, Shane Warne's obviously record 708. What a great cricketer he was, Warney. But if he does do it, then he deserves it because, he's 20's the new 40, isn't it? Right?
That's what they say. I mean, Warren number 2 all time? I think he is number 2 all time, right?
It's Murali with 800 and then Warney with 708.
Yeah, Morali's got 800 wickets. Holy cow. Morali's got 800.
And he had to deal with that. I know that you and Nick reacted to the
video. Yeah, he could have more.
Yeah.
Right. But
I had to deal with that with his career as well. But he can do it, Jimmy Anderson. I think he can. He said age is just a number. That's what he said in the interview that I watched him do. He said it's just a number. I'm still enjoying it. The environment in the dressing room's calm, relaxing with Stokes and McCullum as captain. Me and Stuart Broad he'll probably say no one will probably do it outside of me. We'll go on and play until they're 40. Maybe Stuart Broad, he said. But I think after that, probably not because of the changing landscape of cricket. So,
I mean, here's the thing, too. Athletes are expected to play a lot more. We've got more cricket right now than ever. And the thing that helps Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad is that they stick primarily to tests, right? They're not playing on all these domestic leagues. They're not playing T20. Most of the big bowlers these days that are out there, take your pick. We talked about Rabada earlier. We talked about Marco Jansen. We talked about Norkia. All those guys play in the IPL. All those guys play T20 cricket in other domestic leagues. That's a lot of bullets out of their arm, so to speak. You know what I mean? And you've only have so many before stuff starts breaking down, the shoulder, the elbow. So I think that, you're not going to see a lot of these young guys go up into their 40s because they play too much cricket. And there's too many formats for them to play. Now, we got the 100. I just saw that. I think the 100 draft is either coming up pretty soon here. That's something somebody hit me on Twitter about it. But, me personally, you're right. I think Jimmy Anderson is the last person. And I know you say 42 like it's nothing. Jack, you're still young, all right? you got, as Nick and I like to say, you're a young pup. You got Similac on your breath. You know what Similac is?
Is it like baby formula or something?
Baby formula. Yeah, you got Similac on your breath, all right? You're a young pup in your 20s. Bro, I go to the gym. I'm 42. I go to the gym, bust it out, and the next day, the wife will be like, "Hey, man, don't touch me. Don't touch, you know what I mean? I'm hurt. My shoulders hurt, my back hurt, or whatever." I'm serious. Like, I am in awe when I see these guys out there. And again, it's tests. Sometimes they're out there for 5, 6 hours. God forbid they're playing in England. There's going to be a rain delay. I mean, it could be a long day, and those guys are out there like.
And they're bowling 20+ overs too. And if the pitch is flat, it's even tough work because it's not doing anything.
Oh my God!
But I think what's helped Jimmy is that he's only played one format. He used to play ODIs and T20s, but he gave that up after 2015 World Cup, Stuart Broad, where England performed badly. And I think that's benefited both of them, really. We're just going to play Test cricket. And then they've done that. Another question from the Sports Breakout here. He says, Rabada and Norkia has done a tremendous job in this Test match. The pace attack of South Africa right now is very underrated and matches the likes of Verlander and Walker 10 years ago. Yes, we did talk about that earlier. And he even said, even Dal Steyn as well. Yes, it is a good attack. They're taking a lot of wickets, and they did a demolition job on England, that's for sure, in this first test. He also says, Sports Breakdown, what do you think about the baseball, Gabe? And do you think this trend can go for many years? I have seen a huge improvement in their batting, but not sure about their bowling apart from Anderson and Broad. We already touched on that a bit earlier about baseball. We think it's not sustainable. It's going to end some way, and it probably has in this test match. But Gabe, obviously, how do you see England under Stokes and McCullum? Have you noticed a change from the Root and Silverwood leadership of the Ashes, which was absolutely terrible?
They're more aggressive. And you want to have an aggressive mentality for sure. That's basketball, right? Go out there. And however, you have to play intelligently. I think that the one thing I do see that under Stokes, there's a lot more cohesiveness, because you can even see sometimes Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad specifically. The guy. He's a book, okay? You could read his emotions on his sleeve, and a guy will drop a catch and he's just flailing his arms, and he'll give you the big eyes. He doesn't care, all right? He wears his emotions on his sleeve, and you don't really see that. They were getting their brains beaten. They got hammered, but you didn't see like the team falling apart. You didn't see the bickering. You don't hear, like we heard, and I'm like, why is this getting out? There's bickering in the locker room. There's dissension in the ranks. Stuart Broad and Joe Root getting into it. You're not hearing any of that right now. So, at the very least, I think that Stokes has managed to be a better captain from that perspective. You know what I mean? The team seems more cohesive, and McCullum, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misreading it, but I think he's garnering a little bit more respect, because when stuff starts getting out, that means the coach has lost the locker room, right? Where guys are going to be, talking to the media, and that stuff should never get out, ever. And the fact that it did under the prior Silverwood and Root regime, I should say, just tells you that maybe the guys are more comfortable. To your point, you just said that Stuart Broad talked about, not Stuart Broad, Jimmy Anderson talked about how much of a relaxing atmosphere it was, so I think that's what I noticed the most, that they look like they're having a lot more fun. And again, when you can only have so much fun when you're getting your brains beaten in, but I think that if this same result had happened under Joe Root and under Silverwood, it would have been a 5-alarm fire. All right, there all kind of talk would have been coming out about how irresponsible people played, and how the captaincy was poor, and how they put the bowlers in a bad position. All kinds of stuff would have been coming out. Here is just, don't panic. You know what I mean? I haven't heard anything. There's no panic. The media is talking about it, obviously. Fans like you and I are talking about it. How long is basketball going to? Right now, they're just like, no, this is our approach. This is what we're going to do. It is what it is. So, that's my opinion.
Yeah, it is. Where is it? Just looking at my notes there. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, so obviously, there's another question here from Pound again from Sports Breakdown. What do you think about the Future Tours program, Future Tour for Test cricket in the next 4 years? Do you think it's fair for nations like Bangladesh, where Test cricket is dying, to have more Test matches than Pakistan, South Africa, and Sri Lanka? We are going to discuss the international schedule a bit later on in this discussion, but we'll touch on it now. I'm just looking at my notes here. Yes, they have got 34 Test matches, Bangladesh, in this next cycle from 2023 to 2027. Pakistan has got 27, South Africa 28, Sri Lanka 25. It's not really equal among the teams, that they play different amounts of cricket throughout the formats. I mean, throughout the whole three formats, but also for Test cricket, it's all over the place. England play the most Tests in the next cycle anyway.
Right.
So it's about trying to find that balance. But we'll touch on that in the when we talk about the international schedule, because that is a thing that needs to be addressed. And is there too much cricket on? I think there is personally, but your thoughts on that, Gabe, before we talk about one-day cricket?
I think that what it does, it affects the standings in a way where, because you're playing different amount of Test matches, right? You'll have this situation where a team may or may not play a Test match, depending on how it's going to impact the standings. We recently saw something similar to that. And, you've got the teams that are going to play Sri Lanka, let's say, multiple times, right? And play a Bangladesh multiple times. And is it, let's just be real, though Bangladesh is probably one of the weaker Test nations. Those are easy points. So to speak. So I just think it throws a competitive balance off. You know what I mean? Because if it's 34, they're not playing everybody an equal amount of time. So I don't understand what the schedule makers were doing there. The only thing I can think of is give them more matches so that more teams can tour there. So that, to your point, cricket is dying. Their Sports Breakdown in Bangladesh, not dying, but obviously the viewership is dying. So if we start bringing in more Test teams from bigger nations, maybe it'll ignite or reignite the passion, and more fans will come out.
Yeah, absolutely, because it is something that needs to be fixed, but we'll touch on that a bit later on, as I said. So before we move on to ODI cricket, Gabe, who's your favorite player in Test cricket at the moment? Who do you like watching? Batsman or bowler?
Man.
Or
that is so tough. It is tough. It is so tough. Man, what's funny, man? Most guys, and Nick and I laugh about it. We were talking about this the other day, that it seems like every single highlight video we do, every single one we do, it's like West Indies getting yammied, right? And it's like they always perform against my guys. They always perform against the West Indies, and it's like it must be a West Indies hater that puts together these compilation videos, because in every one of them, the West Indies are getting hammered. And bro, Kane Williamson just owns the West Indies, doesn't he? He's a monster. He beats up the West Indies. It drives me insane. I remember calling him garbage because coming off an IPL season where he did nothing, and oh god. But he is probably one of my favorites to watch. You know what I mean? Like, Kane Williamson is an absolute dog, man. There's a lot of good batsmen out there that I enjoy watching in Tests. Babar Azam is another one I enjoy watching, even though he doesn't get a lot of Test matches. Man, I love watching Sky. Sky's one of my favorite players in general from India. If you ever heard the story, he came so late into the game. It's Sky's probably one of my favorite Indian players and batsmen to watch. Rashid Pant, just because he's so reckless and you don't ever know what you're gonna get out of it. for bowlers, man. I just love watching bowlers take scalps, and I love watching. Patty Cummings is one of my favorites. You know, it's he's an artist with the ball, man. He's an artist with the ball, and it's not that he's got the most pace, because the most pace is Mitchell Stark, right? Mitchell Stark, those gas, absolute gas.
Oh, that delivery he bowled to Rory Burns first ball.
Rory Burns. Oh my God. I felt bad because Rory Burns that year had gone down for like 6 or 7 ducks. But that ball was truly unplayable. That was absolute. But Mitchell Stark, again, much like a Joshua Archer, is good in spurts, but he's always hurt. And those guys that just rely on just pure pace and gas can only give you 10, 15, maybe 20 overs, and then they just start wearing down. Where Patty Cummings looks as good in the 4th day of a test match in the 2nd innings, bowling, and he does it in the 1st. You know what I mean? I feel like he gets stronger. So he's probably one of my favorites. Bumrah from India, man. It's weird because he's got this weird delivery too, like almost like his arm is too straight. I don't know if you ever watched it. Like it looks like it's almost like somebody said that his elbow is what do you call it? I forgot what they mentioned, like double jointed. That's why it looks that way when he does it. So his delivery looks weird, but Boomer is absolutely nasty. And he's got more of almost like an Australian mentality when he's bowling, where he's going to throw gas and he's going to beat you up a little bit. And, he's going to throw some rocks at you and hold that. You know what I mean? This is my pitch. So I like that aggressiveness out of him. And yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's the bowlers. I think that's where it starts, and it's the best part of Test, watching them take scalps. Those are some of my favorites. There's some young guys that I really like watching. And USA, all right, USA again. It's not Test. I know we're talking about Test cricket, but we're gonna jump into ODI shortly. Man, USA has this kid, Steve. Oh man, he's an absolute monster. And Stevens is a dog. He's a dog. And the West Indies also has some good players. I think the thing with the West Indies is they don't have enough depth. Does that make sense? They've got Azari Joseph, of course, the night watchman. They got a couple of good bowlers, but other than that, they don't have enough depth to take on the likes of an England or an India. And only the 3rd or 4th bowlers are getting pumped, absolutely pumped. So, I mean, that's me. Who's your favorite? Let me guess. I know you're an umpire. So that I wouldn't say, maybe David Warner. One of your favorite, David Warner. You always seem more partial to the batsman. I know you always seem more partial.
I like batting, but I am a bowler myself. But I like batting. Now, yeah, for me, it's the guy behind me in the poster that I grew up watching.
Ponting. But Ricky Ponting not playing anymore. I mean, like current player right now. Like,
well, that's all time, along with growing up as a kid. Him and Michael Hussey from Australia were 2 of my favorite Test players growing up. Currently, it's got to be Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne, the batsman.
Marnus, I love me some Marnus.
No run. He's a character, Marnus. Nathan Lyon for the bowling. Josh Hazelwood, because he reminds me of Glenn McGrath so much, that line and length. And Pat Cummins for the bowling. That's my favourites at the moment. And the sports breakdown said, batting for me, it's Marnus, Babar Azam, Test cricket. For bowling, it's Kahisa Rabada and Nathan Lyon. That's not bad. That's pretty good. The direct hit says, can KG Rabada, he's around about 440 scalps. So I think that's combined with all 3 formats. Can he surpass 600? Yes. If he can stay fit and healthy, he probably can go past that in his international career combined. So we've talked about Test cricket, Gabe. Let's talk about one-dayers. And that's been in the talking point, hasn't it, with the news about Ben Stokes retiring. Now, hear me out here, Gabe. I think the reason why we're talking about the future of one-day cricket all of a sudden is because of Ben Stokes' retirement from one-dayers. Now, if he retired from T20 internationals, which I think he should have, but he went the other way, then we wouldn't be talking about one-dayers and the future of one-day cricket. We'll say, he's retired from T20 internationals. That's less important. He'll play ODIs and test matches for England. But for him to retire from ODIs was a bit of a shock And that's why we're talking about it. So, Gabe, what are your thoughts on, first of all, one-day cricket? What do you like about it? What do you dislike about it? And what do you think about the Stokes situation? Do you think other players will follow his lead in the future?
This is all you need to know. ODI is Ben Stokes' best format. He's actually a better ODI player than he is a T20 player. But I think it's a sign of the times, man. I think Ben Stokes understands that, you know, T20, because it's more of a television product. And there's the rumors of it, going to the Olympics. And of course, you've got now US with their T20 team. And you've got the IPL, you've got the BBL, you've got the 100. As far as a revenue stream, it's a lot easier for players to make money when they're not playing test that way. I think it's a sign of the times that, people always say fear that test is going to die. I don't think test will die simply because you've got the history, the tradition there. But I think that what might suffer is ODI, simply because it doesn't have the allure. It doesn't have the
history behind
the
it.
history of tests.
It does have history a little bit with the World Cups, but I can understand what you're trying to say. Yeah.
But it doesn't have the what do you call it? It just doesn't have the history, the reputation, the allure of tests. But at the same time, it takes just as long just over the course of the day, not necessarily a 4 or 5 day test match. You know what I mean? So it's not a television product. ODI is just not a television product, similar to test, right? Because unfortunately, it's too long. You're talking about 6, 7, 8 hours, and people ask, why do you talk about it television product? At least here in the States, I don't know. Maybe educate me. Maybe it's not like this internationally, but teams make more money off TV than they do at the stand. They don't care what they sell tickets for at the stands. They don't care how many people are in attendance. There's stadiums here in American sports where the teams, especially when it's cold and the weather's bad out. If the team's not winning, their stadium, they're empty. Doesn't matter. They've got those TV contracts. They're making money. It's collectively bargained, right? So even if we're not drawing, collectively other teams are blocked. And I'm talking about the NFL specifically. Other teams are drawing, so we're all making money. And it's one of the things that's same thing with the NBA. So television ratings dominate sports, at least here in America, so much, because that's where the revenue stream is at, and the guaranteed revenue stream is at. So networks don't want a game to go over 3 or 4, and we've seen it in cricket. Actually, now that I think about it, what was the game Nick and I reacted to? I think it might have been an ODI.
The semi-final of the World Cup, England, South Africa, 92.
Yeah, you know what I mean? They cutting it short because they had some programming that exactly it got revenue from commercials, revenue from television. That's really the driving force behind it. So I think that ODI is in trouble, and I think that the more T20 leagues you see, where you've got, to your point, you mentioned it earlier, there's too much cricket, right? Players are getting hurt. Players are not able to play for their teams. A lot of times they're unfit because they got hurt, playing in the IPL or playing in the BBL or playing in, the CPL or now the 100. And I think that you cannot knock players for playing in those domestic leagues, but if they're going to be playing in those domestic leagues, then it would only make sense for T20 to continue, because that's going to help them sharpen their skills for those domestic leagues, and it's not as an abrupt change in a format, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they're not going from 50 overs in ODIs to now T20 where they're playing 10 overs. Well, 20 overs. Excuse me. But I mean, what do you think?
I like one-day cricket personally, because I think in Australia, with what happened with World Series cricket back in the late 70s, people have memories of going to watch those first matches under lights, like the West Indies were in pink, for example, and watching that. So it's much loved in Australia, because I remember last summer where we didn't have one-day cricket at all. That was the first time in 40 years that an Australian cricket summer did not have a one-day international, ever, in the last 40 years. And people were outraged. They said, where's the one-day cricket? Because New Zealand, who are going to play this summer, their ODI series was meant to be played last summer because of what happened the year before that summer when the last 2 years happened, So because the stuff with the borders and that, they couldn't do it. So that's why I got cancelled. But I think in Australia, people still have that connection to one-day cricket and they still love it because we've had such a great history as an Australian cricket team in one-day cricket with World Cups. We've won 5. We have that connection. So I think there's, even the next 4 years, the ICC have scheduled more ODIs going forward. I think there's got it in front of me here. It's 281 in the next 4 years.
Wow, that's a lot.
So that's a lot. So they think there's still a future for it. The World Cups will keep happening and people will still watch it. But also with timings and that, because I've gone to 2 one-day internationals. And that was at the Adelaide Oval against Australia in India and Australia, South Africa. I didn't go to the first innings of that match. I went to the second innings, which is the nighttime period. Because obviously in Adelaide, in the Australian summer, it's hot. It's 40 degrees. I don't know what that is in Celsius, Gabe, because you use that over there in America, but it's hot. I can tell you that it's hot. So people have that choice of going to the first innings or the second innings. You have that choice. You don't have to watch the whole game. You can watch it on TV, then go to the ground and experience like that because it's a different experience when you watch cricket at the ground. The Sports Breakdown says, also your thoughts whether ODI cricket should be reduced to 40 overs instead of 50 overs to make cricket have more quality, according to ex-Indian coach Ravi Shastri and Usman Khawaja as well. Your thoughts on that, Gabe? Do you think they should shorten the amount of overs from 50 to 40? Because it hasn't been 50. It's been varied over the years in one-day cricket.
I think that the current format for ODI is the one thing that's really interesting. And you run out of bowling. You really do. You know what I mean? Because you got to get 50 overs. And a lot of these teams will have 40 overs for sure. But then they got to piecemeal those other 10 overs. You know what I mean? And you got, part-time spinners in there. And I think that, it's what makes for the excitement that, you're going to have an all-rounder come in there or even a part-time spinner come in there. You'll see a Joe Root, go in there to get a few overs because, traditionally, you're going to go with your 4 frontline bowlers. And then if it was, I think it would benefit the teams, but then maybe make the games less competitive or less challenging for the teams, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Oh, 40 overs, no sweat. We got our 4 bowlers. You know what I mean? Now we can go ahead and stack our lineup with 7 batsmen and we're good to go. You know what I mean? Or, just maybe a part-time all-rounder. But what with that, you've got guys that you got to throw in there that you're going to need overs from, whether it's a Cam Green, you know what I'm saying, or somebody to that effect. So for Australia, you know what I mean? Because you don't have a choice. And Moeen Ali for England, you're going to have to get some overs out of him. And especially if it's a guy like Moeen Ali, who's so good with the bat, but, can be suspect with the ball and tend to get pumped from time to time. I think that man, being an all-rounder is tough business, man. That's why they're so valuable. So valuable. Jason Holder, one of my favorite West Indies player. That's what makes him so valuable, you know what I mean? Because he can help you with the bat or the ball, and he's a great player. I think that he's had so much pressure because when we started watching cricket, he was the captain of the Test team. I think he was also the captain of the ODI team. I think it was because Pollard was the captain of the T20 squad, and he's a young kid. Jason Holder's still young, man. And think about this. This was 3 years ago. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of responsibility to, put I think at the time it was maybe 25 or 26-year-old captain of the, West Indies test side. That's a lot of decisions to make. And then you're an all-rounder, so a lot of responsibilities put on your shoulders. And I think that taking that responsibility away from him has definitely improved this game.
Yeah. An interesting fact about that, they did actually have 40 overs in the first ever ODI, which was back in 1971, actually, in Melbourne, between Australia and England. Interesting story with that, because the test match of that Ashes series was washed out. So they replaced it with a one-day exhibition match, which was the first one-day international. And they had 40 overs aside, and Australia won that match. Over the years, it's been 60 overs, especially in the early World Cups. Excuse me. And now they've kept it to 50. So, yeah, well, it'll be interesting whether it's going to end or not. I'm not sure. And then T20 is going to be the dominant format. I think it still has a place in the game. But we have to wait and see, because we can't predict the future. But it is a bit worrying when, the only way we've sort of, the media and that have just reacted to this, really, that he retired Ben Stokes from one-day cricket, so it's dying.
I think about what you just said, right? There was no ODI cricket in Australia. And to your point, you said New Zealand was supposed to come. Okay, so you're telling me that for the entire summer, they only scheduled one ODI series? That's it? Even if New Zealand had came, it should have been concerning that they only scheduled one ODI series. Now, maybe they scheduled more. All of them got canceled, but they all got canceled?
Well, who played last summer? No, it was meant to be ODIs against New Zealand, because usually when it's an Ashes series, you have an ODI series after an Ashes series in Australia. That didn't happen last summer because we had to, get New Zealand back to reschedule that series. Obviously, England will come out with some ODIs this summer, but South Africa won't, because they pulled out. Because we haven't mentioned that, because South Africa pulled out of that ODI series against Australia because of that T20 league that's starting in South Africa in January was clashing with the series that was proposed in Australia. And they sort of conceded, South Africa, that we won't qualify for the 50-over World Cup anyway. We'll play in the qualifying tournament, because you know about the Cricket World Cup Super League, Gabe, which is qualification for the World Cup next year. Right. If you finish in the bottom half from 9 to 13, you have to play in a qualifying tournament in Zimbabwe. Right. So South Africa are already at the bottom. They thought, well, we're not going to get into the top 8. India are already qualified, so because they're the host nation, so they've already qualified. But South Africa thought, we've got this new T20 league starting in January. We don't want it to clash with the series in Australia, so that's why we're not going to tour. So they've given away 30 points to Australia, basically, because they knew that we'll take our chances in the qualifying tournament, but it's not guaranteed that you're probably going to win, because Ireland and these other nations are doing well now. So they're taking that big risk on their shoulders.
I think the last thing I'm going to say on that topic is this. Now you got South Africa. I didn't even know South Africa was coming in. It's been a busy summer for me. Obviously, my kids out in college now in North Dakota, playing football out there, school, whatever. But so let me get this straight. You've got regular T20 schedule. You've got the IPL. You've got the CPL. You've got the BBL. You've got the 100. You've got the Sri Lankan Premier League, right? With SPL. You've got the Pakistan has their own
Pakistan Super League. You've got the Bangladesh Premier League.
And the Dutch Premier League.
South Africa.
I'm running out of fingers. Now. And listen. Again. And now, again, are they going to cancel tests, or are they going to cancel ODI series? Which is more likely to get canceled, because the teams or nations don't have their premier players that they want, and maybe they're pushing their own league. Like, again, England is pushing the 100 hard. You know what I mean? It's where the money's at, man. It's where the money's at. I am sorry. I know people are losing their mind. Better than tests, but I just think that it's definitely going to take a chunk out of one day international cricket, because there's just not enough days on the calendar, bro. There's just not enough days in the calendar.
No, there isn't. That's why when we talk about the international schedule, you'll be amazed at how many matches there are scheduled for all countries. It's a lot. To finish off on one-day cricket before we move on to T20 cricket, the Sports Breakdown says the thing is that viewership is decreasing a bit in ODI cricket due to the franchise leagues happening and the start of the South Africa T20 League, UAE T20 League, Women's IPL and IPL is extended, yes. So definitely T20 leagues are taking over international cricket at the moment, which we'll talk about now, Gabe, because that's a perfect segue into T20 cricket. Let's talk about that. What do you like about T20 cricket, Gabe? What do you like about it? Short, sharp, quick nature of it?
Oh man, it's while my favorite format is Test. I think that the Super Over and not just the Super, the death in you can miss the whole match. It doesn't matter. Get me to the death. Give me the death in any T20 match, whether you're talking about the IPL, the BBL, the 100, and that's some exciting television right there. That's some exciting. You're on the edge of your seat. You know what I mean? Unless it's a blowout match, but for the most part, you know what I mean. Like I've seen unbelievable. Oh, and unfortunately, it's happened at the expense of my teams many a times. Whether it was CSK, getting pumped for 50 runs in the death, or Ngidi. Oh, and Giddy getting pumped by Pollard. Dude, I still couldn't believe that, dude. It was like he was feeding him us. It's just brutal. And I think that it's a more exciting version of the game. A lot of Americans that do follow cricket follow T20. Obviously, USA. I love USA T20 cricket. But even John Boy was talking about. John Boy's a very big media personality here. He does a lot of baseball, a few other sports or whatever. But he's, watching cricket, and he's actually done a few IPL matches. He says T20 cricket fixes everything that's bad about baseball. There's no dead time because there's no foul balls. Every ball in play matters. Every delivery, every ball bowled matters. Because in baseball, there's just pitches that don't matter. They're just throwaway pitches or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Well, if you bowl a wide, it's gonna hurt you. You know what I'm saying?
Or a no ball, free hit.
A no ball is gonna hurt you. Every single delivery matters, man. And I do. I've grown to really enjoy T20 cricket. Some of my favorite matches I've watched at IPL have been crazy, bro. The World Cup was, even though West Indies got
bit of a fanboy moment here, Gabe. That semi-final that you live streamed with Australia and Pakistan. I thought I was like, calm down.
That was
Matthew Wade's got it here. He's got it. Calm down.
Bro, I thought it was done. I was like, no. And because I root for Australia as well. And once the West Indies was done, I'm like, come on, Australia, get in there. And I was freaking out. I'm not gonna lie. That's what I'm saying. Like it's compelling television. It's exciting. And I mean, that's it. That's what I love about it. I don't know what else to say. It's crazy. And I think that because you get an opportunity to see more nations play in international T20 cricket, right, where you'll have Oman, you'll have these other countries that we hadn't seen until we got to that T20 World Cup, and you had the preliminary and qualifying matches. We're like, who? Oman? Who? Papua New Guinea? Who? Oh, and wow,
Namibia,
discovering new players. Namibia, these guys can play. Who's that giant from Namibia? The tall dude, man. He's massive.
I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his
name.
Guys.
Visa, right? It was Visa.
Oh, David Visa. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
David Visa was a monster. The guy was, we call him Gigantor. The guy was huge. Like watching him was so much fun. So I think that is also the thing I like about T20 cricket, where you get to see players from different nations that aren't necessarily the big, 3 or 4, or even just your top 12 playing test nations.
Yeah. Sports Breakdown. Let's got a question here. Oh, he says, my favorite format's Test as well, but T20 cricket can be thrilling, especially when the matches get close. Plus, there's a chance for many teams to qualify for the T20 World Cup. There are more opportunities. Yes, they are. And I think the ICC are going to expand the T20 World Cup going forward as well. So there'll be more teams. I think 20 plus teams, in the future. So that's good for the game. Another question here from Dr. Jihan.
Oh,
Actually, he says, guys, thoughts regarding T20 league contracts, Chris Lynn and David Warner, etc. Is this the end of international cricket? Is cricket only be about T20 from now on? And does T20 internationals have any relevance? Your thoughts on that, Gabe? What he means by Chris Lynn and David Warner is that they're probably not going to play in the Big Bash this summer. They're probably going to play in that UAE T20 league that's happening
right,
at the same time in January. So a bit of
right.
background on that. So your thoughts on what Jihan had to say there?
What's up, Jihan? Thanks for the question. Listen, I'm telling you guys, I'm not sure if it's the end of international T20 because the fact that these guys will still get sharp and be able to play for their home country on the T20 side will help, right? Because there's going to be downtime between the IPL, between the BBL, between the 100, between the Sri Lankan League and the CPL. But I think it does not. It's not good for ODIs. It's just not good for ODIs. And again, you follow the money, man. You follow the money. Some of these contracts given away, not just in the IPL, but even in the BBL. None of that. Was it the or was it the? Was I looking at not the BBL? Maybe it was 100. Somebody got some ridiculous money to go play. I think I don't remember if it was the 100 or the BBL. I can't remember. I was like, holy cow, really? I thought only the IPL was giving away that kind of money. But I think that it's tempting for players to go for a shorter season and make themselves, a couple $100,000, $400,000, $500,000, something like that. In the IPL, you've got your $1 million, $2 million contracts that are given out. Patty Cummings made $2 million in what was it, four? It's not even 3 months. It's like 8-9 weeks. $2 million? Come on now. And with that kind of incentive, I can't see players turning down the opportunity to earn that kind of cash.
Yeah, it's too tempting, really, when there's money concern. Yeah, and especially if Chris Lynn has gone to that UAE T20 league that's starting up in January, because he got released from the Brisbane Heat, actually, for this BBL season. And David Warner, he was offered a lot of money from Cricket Australia to play in the Big Bash because they don't want, because it looks bad, really, at the end of the day, if that happens. You don't want that to happen, really. And Jihan says, for me, significance in international cricket lies in Test cricket and ODI cricket, not T20 internationals. Yep, I think most people would agree with that because T20 cricket has a love-hate relationship with many people. They say, oh, it's a waste of time and all this stuff as well. And also, Powan from the Sports Breakdown says about Trent Bolt. Also, what do you think about Trent Bolt not renewing his central contract with New Zealand in order to focus more on his family and future life? Do you think many players will follow Bolt? So basically, Trent Bolt decided to step back from international cricket and make himself available to play for New Zealand, but not touring as much, spending more time with his family and probably playing T20 leagues around the world as well. So your thoughts on that, Gabe? Because if you've got a central contract, you are available for selection all the time, whereas he's not doing it because he won't be they'll prioritize more players that have a central contract than those who don't. So he's putting his faith in the selectors if they want to choose him still. So your thoughts on Trent Bolt and making that decision? I think everyone's different in terms of their priorities.
Right. I don't knock anyone, you know what I mean, for wanting to spend time with your family. And listen, we talked about this. Mental health is serious. Being away from that, the last few years have been daunting on these players. Talking about the COVID bubbles and all this and restrictions and rules, and ultimately it helped put things into perspective for a lot of people, including players. And I'm not going to knock him. It's too much cricket. And if he's playing, ODIs, if he's playing T20, if he's playing, Test cricket, and then he's also playing in the IPL, I believe also played in the BBO as well. Was it the BBO?
No, he hasn't played in the BBO yet.
100. I think he played in 100. I remember seeing his name there. When it's, you know what I mean? It's just it's a
Yeah.
lot, man. It's a lot. If you got a family, wife, kids, you know what I mean? That's a lot. And yeah, I could see it happening more and more, and that's why I'm saying that almost by de facto, you're gonna see maybe it'll be the players themselves that phase out ODI because they're gonna make the decision. All right, what's a bigger priority for me to play? Because there's just not enough time, and you're gonna say make more play, see more players make that decision like a Ben Stokes. But maybe I am just misreading the situation.
Yeah. Sports Breakdown also says, what do you think about certain countries blocking cricketers from not going to franchise cricket leagues but not approving NOCs when players aren't even having tours or even if they have a tour? That's basically like a clearance. Just say, okay, you can play in this league, whatever, like they do in IPL as well. Gabe, so what do you reckon on that? Do you think cricket boards should have that power and say, right, you're not going to the IPL or you're not going to, because you got to prioritize international cricket over that? Or
Pay him. That's all I gotta say. Because I'm a West Indies fan, right? And yeah, I would love my West Indies to focus on tests. I would love my West Indies to focus on ODI, and but the reality is, pay them. Pay them. If you're gonna pay them what they're gonna make over in the that's one thing. But if you're not, then you can't tell these athletes who have a limited shelf life. Because let's be real, average athlete's career is 10 years. Period. You know what I mean? For the most part, your body holds up for about 10 years. Now, you've got the Stuart Broads of the world and Jimmy Andersons that'll play, 15, 20 years. Jimmy Anderson's what, 42? No, 42 for the love of Pete. But on average, and I heard that this was all professional sports, not just baseball, football, cricket. If you take every single professional sports, the average career is about 10 years. Now, some like the NFL is about 3 years because it's a violent sport. I'm pretty sure rugby is the same thing. You know what I mean? Those guys don't last a long time. But if you've got a limited shelf life to make money and to provide for you and your family for a very long time, then you got to take advantage of the opportunities where they're at.
yeah. And the Sports Breakdown also says, thanks for the question, guys. We love answering your questions. Great to see so many people in the chat enjoying our discussion today. He also says, Sports Breakdown, also, what do you think about Virat Kohli's statement this week regarding on mental health and the way he said that people he loved also left him alone at times? He hasn't got 100 in 1,000 days. I haven't heard about that article or what he said, to be honest, but mental health is a serious issue, Gabe, as we talked about a little bit before. So what are your thoughts on that? And also, he hasn't got 100 as well. It's just ticked over 1,000 days since he got his last 100. That pressure's building on him. He's got the world of expectations on his shoulders, Virat Kohli. So your thoughts on Virat?
I'm curious. Is there 100 watch on every player this way? I guarantee you there's other big name players that haven't got a century in 1,000 days. But it's like, man, Virat Kohli doesn't do it. And I feel bad for him. Now, I've never been the biggest Virat Kohli fan, but the amount of hate and stress and scrutiny that this guy is put under, like, you know what I mean? Like, man. And then the whole stripping him of captaincy and then the whole RCB thing. Well, if you really want to step down, then you should step down from RCB captaincy because that's some of the most pressure in the world. And he kind of buckled to that pressure as well. And I think he's trying to please too many people. He's listening to the noise. You can absolutely tell he is listening to the noise. He's listening to his critics. He's listening to the media, and that's not good. It's not good for any athlete. I tell you that right now. You got to be able to. You're like a horse, right? You got to be like a horse at the Kentucky Derby. Just put those blinders on and focus on your race. Focus on because if you start forget about it, your head's gonna be spinning. So I hope he could get out of his head. If he made a mental health statement earlier this week, and I don't know that he did, I didn't read it myself as well. I wouldn't put it past the fact that think about it. This guy wasn't there after the second match of the India-Australia series. He played the first match and had to go because he had a newborn. Missed the rest of that series and then was right back, for the next series. You know what I mean? Like, how much time did he get to speak? You know what I mean? Like, Yes, that wears on you. Again, the people he loved the most had to be, he was left alone at times. That dude, if that's really what he said, I almost feel those words. You know what I mean? He said that he loved people, the people he loved also left him alone at times. That's just tough, man. That's just tough.
Well,
And
he's a human
who
being.
was it? Yeah, he's a human being. I think it was, I forgot who was it that said that the wife was like, I think it was uh it was another Indian player. Said his wife said like, I can't do it. I can't do the bubble. We gotta go. We gotta go. It might have been what's that spinner's name?
Is
It's
it
eluding.
Ashwin? Is it or
Probably Ashwin. Yeah. It was Ashwin, I think, that mentioned it. And again, yeah, these families, like, look, you're an athlete. You may be used to the isolation. You may be used to, the restriction. But now, if your families are with you, they're still going through that stuff. And yeah, I think that the last 2 years plus has definitely taken a toll on Virat Kohli, man. I feel bad for the guy.
yeah, and well, he's not playing much cricket as it is at the moment because I think India's in Zimbabwe at the moment. He's not in that series. So he's taking a break, but he needs a break, just get away from it. Hopefully he comes back rejuvenated and hopefully, is the Virat Kohli of old. But, when you get towards the back end of your career, things don't quite work out as you would like, especially as a batsman with your reflexes and that, and your mental capacity. We shall see. Let's talk about USA cricket, Gabe. Let's talk about the game in America. You and Nick do tremendous work, and you haven't checked out Nick and Gabe on Cricket for Americans. Please do, because I've been on their channel. I've done some live streams with them. We've had some tremendous fun watching games of cricket, talking cricket like we are today. But obviously, Gabe, USA cricket, you got minor league cricket, you got major league cricket, you got new stadiums being built, you got the T20 World Cup in 2024.
Right.
How do you see cricket going in the US in terms of all that stuff and also the T20 World Cup? Do you think it will make it popular, or do you think people will say, cricket, not sure about it?
No, I think it's definitely going to make it popular. I mean, again, I think, and the name internationally, right, isn't going to ring a bell. But the fact that you've got media personalities like John Boyd reacting to cricket on YouTube on his platform, which is huge, and I mean, the guy's been on the Yes Network. He actually does work for the Yes Network, which is the Yankees broadcast network. I think that it, it, it's definitely going to bring more eyes to the sport. And you got to understand, again, America is a melting pot. There's people from everywhere, all right, everywhere in the world here, including a large, European population. So we do have a lot of Australians. I think I might have mentioned it to you. My son's, not I was gonna say minor league, but his youth baseball coach was PJ Bevis, who was an Australian pitcher. He played for the Australian national team and then went on to play for the New York Mets and I think two other organizations. He retired here in the States, but he's Australian. He has tons of family here. So and he's obviously a rugby fan and a cricket fan as well. So you've got a huge Indian population here as well that are obviously cricket fans for the most part. I think that the biggest challenge is going to be slating it in accordingly. And what I say by that is you don't want to play anywhere near the NFL. Don't touch that schedule. NFL is king. NFL is king. Listen, right now, it's embarrassing, but I heard this the other day. They're playing what's called preseason games. These games don't matter. It's a preseason game. It's like a warm-up match, for lack of a better word. They're out drawing Major League Baseball games that matter, right? That's just, and Major League Baseball also already runs into the football schedule. So they can't make it that long. I don't think they will because these T20, right? Probably do like a 3 or 4 month season, maybe, you know what I mean? And you definitely, because of the different dynamics out here in the climate, it probably makes sense to do it more during the spring/summer. So almost going right up against baseball, to be honest with you. There's that window between January when nothing happens, and it's still cold in some places, but late January, early February, when the Super Bowl is done and baseball hasn't started because pitchers and catchers don't report till February, so their spring training games don't even start until like this year they started super late, like March or early April. There's that time, that window that if you have your season there, your main primary season, it can be very successful because there's not much to watch. There's not much. There's no NBA at that time, no Major League Baseball, no football, and if the powers that be are smart, that's when they would fit it in. What's up, Thunder Hayes?
Oh yeah, Thunder here says, "Hi Gabe, long time no see." Powered from the Sports Breakdown says, "What do you think about USA Cricket in terms of qualifying to the ODI World Cup in the future? Do you think USA Cricket can qualify within the next few years? Players like Ali Khan and how do you pronounce it?
Mohatra.
Mohatra? Yeah, impress.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that, Gabe?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that we've got some really good players. We've got some experienced players, right? And I think the biggest challenge for USA Cricket is going to be consistency because they'll look great one match and then the next match, they'll kind of almost like baseball. They'll be too aggressive. They'll throw away their wickets. They'll throw away the match. Right? They don't play as disciplined, and I think that USA has some really talented players. I talked about Steven earlier. Steven Taylor, man, look him up if you haven't. He's a dog, all right? The captain, friend of the channel, Aaron Jones, he's an absolute dog, or vice captain, actually. The captain is Monarch. And they've got really good players. I just think it's being able to put it together, play more consistency. And people think, and I get it, they're like, oh, you're getting ahead of yourself. It's Ireland win. It's Scotland win. Oman had some big wins. Oman surprised a lot of people. I'm not saying that USA is going to go out and beat India. All right. I'm not saying that, but they're going to get, in my opinion, they're going to get further in the tournament than a lot of people think they are. I mean, they went through a stretch too, man, where they had won like 8-9 matches in a row, including, beating Canada, Argentina, Papua New Guinea, Namibia. So I mean, they're already dominant, I should say, with the associate nations. Like, I want to see what they can do against the big boy talent. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Next level up.
That next level up, exactly. So I'm excited for it. I
am. He also asked the Sports Breakdown, Gabe, how significant is it for USA Cricket to actually get a chance to host the 2024 T20 World Cup, plus getting to automatically qualify for the 2024 T20 World Cup as they're the hosts? What sort of a boost will it give them in the tournament?
You know what it'll do? It's going to get a lot of seats, a lot of fans in those seats. Because, okay, yeah, we're playing, now we go. Because you're going to get your regular cricket fans that are going to come and watch the games any which way, right? But USA's in there. Oh, yeah. Just in and of itself, they're going to have a huge fan base that are going to travel to those games that USA is playing. And then, inevitably, when USA, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but when they don't make it further, now, they've already discovered another team and they're already down in the vicinity. Let's go catch another game. So I think it'll help the tournament, in whole. And I know that that's probably, what do you call it? Like a selfish opinion of it, but I just think it will. And so that's why I like when the host nation gets the automatic bid in, you know what I mean? I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it, dude. And I already told the wife, I gotta go. Guess what? Our vacation is gonna be that year. He's like, that's so cool. There's nice beaches out there in Florida. I'm good.
Of course, Fort Lauderdale. I think they're playing at some other venues as well, are they?
Yeah, I think they're playing at like 2 or 3 different venues. But yeah, Fort Lauderdale is not too far from some really, really cool spots. And I lived in Florida for a while. I live in Opelika, Hialeah, which is in Miami. So yeah, I got some friends out there.
He also says, the Sports Breakdown, your favorite player in the USA cricket team, Gabe, and which player has a good chance to get an IPL contract in the future? Any future cricketers from the USA to watch out for?
Ali Khan has actually already played in the IPL. He got a contract from, I think it was it was the TKR. TKR got him. Oh no, KKR, sorry, Kolkata Knight Riders. And who has a chance? If you've seen his bat is legit. I already talked about him. Steven Taylor. Steven Taylor's an absolute dog. Um, you know, the law firm who now plays for the West Indies, Hayden Jr. He used to play for Team USA. Now he's with the West Indies, but he also played in the IPL. I think he played in the IPL, Hayden Walsh Jr. But yeah, check out a guy named Steven Taylor. Mahatra is an absolute dog as well. The vice captain Aaron Jones. They've got some good players, but if I had to just pick one guy, it'd probably be Steven Taylor. I mean, the guy almost had a century in that last match that I watched. Who was that against? I can't remember. Maybe Papua New Guinea. I can't remember. But he can play. He has a serious bat. He's a young dude too. A lot of fun to watch. Very athletic. He can field. One of my favorite players, and of course, friend of the channel, the vice captain, Aaron Jones. He's such a cool dude. He bowls, so he can take wickets. He's more as a batsman, all rounder, but he can help you in different forms.
Yeah. So plenty to look out for USA Cricket. Gabe, let's talk about your number one team, apart from the USA and Australia, and that's the West Indies. So let's talk about West Indian cricket. And the last couple of series have been very poor. They lost the ODI series against India 3-0. They lost the T20 series 4-1. And they lost the T20 series to New Zealand 2-1. And they were leading the ODI series against New Zealand, but I think it's at 1-1 now because New
Now
Zealand
it's at 1-0. Now it's at 1-0. And that's the frustrating thing, right? Because, okay, they looked decent, and it should have been that India series. I watched like 3 of those matches, and the one where India won by 7 wickets, but go back and I think it was the St. Kitts one. Look at that score; it was much closer than that. Okay, now India, of course, 68 runs. That was a shellac, and the 88 one was a shellac. And by that time, they were dejected, but they had a chance to win 2 out of the first 3 matches in the T20 series, and they just couldn't. They couldn't do it. I mean, I don't know if it's leadership. Listen, Pollard retiring really hurt the T20 side, and I don't know, man. It's a frustrating thing. To your point, they started off well in that ODI series, and then they ended up losing the second one pretty handedly as well. What I think they lost like 50 runs or something to that effect. So, I never want to badmouth players, okay, but I think 2 things are evident from England recently and England's recent woes in T20 and the West Indies. Captaincy matters. And to me, I think Nicholas Perron is struggling with his captaincy, not just making the right decisions, but just his play. His play is suffering as well. Nicholas Perron, such a fun player to watch in IPL, so much potential, but you can see the stress on his face. It just doesn't look good. And it's the same thing, man, for one of my favorite players on the England side, Josh Butler. Same thing, man. Josh Butler had like 4 or 5 ducks in a row, to start off his, his career as a T20 captain. So I just think that's it, man. And again, going back to Pollard retiring really hurt the T20 side. I just don't think that Nicholas Perron is. I don't want to say he's captaincy. It's not. He's too. Maybe he's just too young. He doesn't command the respect of the troops. I don't know. You tell me. Maybe you see something different. And for the West Indies, it's more the same. We can hit, right? Brandon King will go out there and rake. Will absolutely rake. You got guys that can, and then we cannot take wickets to save our life. We cannot bowl. We just getting pumped, and that's the problem. You got guys that, or a team that relies so heavily, I should say, on scoring runs and putting up runs, and they can do that, but they struggle taking wickets, and that's why I always say bowling is probably the most important facet of cricket.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. Bowlers win your matches at the end of the day. Batsmen score your runs. Powan from the Sports Breakdown says, guys, your thoughts on the West Indies board having conflicts with their players, especially Russell and Pollard, have been complaining about the West Indies board not giving much respect and having contract money issues. That's been an issue of the West Indies for quite a while now. It's not a new thing. And I read the other day, or saw the other day, that Phil Simmons, the coach, and Desmond Haynes, the selector, they said we can't beg players to play for the West Indies, like a Russell or a Sunil Narine. So they've always had these problems for years. Your thoughts on that, Gabe? Because it's a very frustrating issue that they can't seem to agree on anything.
I'm gonna sum it up like this. I remember watching an interview with Dwayne Bravo. And was it Dwayne Bravo? I think it was Dwayne Bravo, Kamar Roach. It was a very prominent West Indies player. And he was so excited to get the call and to get his cap. And they gave it to him in a trash bag, literally in a trash bag. Oh, Nick and I reacted to it. I want to say it was Dwayne Bravo. If it wasn't Dwayne Bravo, then it was Kamar Roach. But it was like, and he was like, just shocked in himself. Like it was such a unceremonial thing, you know what I mean? Like the least ceremonial way to give somebody their kit in a trash bag. Like no fanfare about it or whatever. And it just, you need a regime change. You need a regime change because that's exactly what it is. All right. The wrong people are getting paid. The money's going to the wrong, it's being funneled to the wrong people. And that's what happens when you got too many cooks in the kitchen. That's part of the issue with the West Indies as well, because you've got, so many the different islands that need to be represented and different people from there that have, their say. And again, the money's not going to the right places. And I think that's about the nicest way I could put it. So I'll stop myself there.
It's just a big problem that they've had. He also says, Powan, also, guys, your thoughts on West Indies Test cricket. It's sad to see West Indies only having a few first-class domestic games as well. It seems that West Indies cricket has gone backwards since the 1980s and 90s. Yes, that's probably an understatement. It has been poor. And I had a look at the stats between Australia and the West Indies, because Australia are playing the West Indies this summer.
Right.
The West Indies haven't won a test match against Australia since 2003, and that was that famous run chase of 418 in Antigua. And they haven't won a test ever since. It's always been Australia. So they have been declining, especially after 1995, when Australia won against the West Indies in the Caribbean in that famous series where Steve Waugh stood up to Curly Ambrose in that famous altercation that he had with him. But that was the changing of the guard. Sorry?
Ambrose was a big boy. It was like 6.
Yeah, he is. He wasn't happy that day. Right. In an interview, he said, I was going to knock Steve Waugh out. I nearly did. He would have knocked him out. But he was restrained. It was the changing of the guard. So it is disappointing to see the decline of the West Indies, because most people will say the West Indies are my second or third favorite team, growing up, like back in those heydays or whatever. So, Gabe, how do you see the test side at the moment? They've put in some good performances at times. They've won some games, but they've been poor, inconsistent. They go to Australia this summer. It's probably going to be 2-0 maybe. It's going to be a tough tour of Australia. But how do you see the side at the moment as a test unit?
You think there's something in the water? You think there's something in the water? We're just not producing good athletes anymore? No. Here's the thing, and I had this conversation. I think that the thing is the West Indies, because of the lack of support at home, because of the lack of, honestly, of financial support, right? These guys, like you said, they're having money issues, contract issues, whatever. The majority of players for the West Indies really focus on, making themselves appealing to international play. And what I mean by that is some of the best players in the West Indies are all-rounders. Even if they're not all-rounders, they're all-rounders, right? And you fashion yourself to be an all-rounder because you can go ahead and focus on your batting. You can be in the nets for 8-10 hours a day, focus on your batting, or you could be in the nets 8-10 hours a day, focusing on your bowling. But these guys fashion themselves to be all-rounders because I think that it's the easiest way to get those international contracts to play in the domestic leagues like the IPL, like the CPL, like the BBL, and you know, just think about some of the best names that you've got out there, from a Pollard who recently retired to a Russell, right? Russell the Muscle. To what do you think? It's something in the DNA that makes these guys all rounders? No, they focus on it. They focus. The mentality is, what's the easiest way for me to make a name, put myself on the international stage, so that I can make money, so that I can get paid. Because I'm not going to get paid over here. And that's what it is. That's what it is. And that's a problem of leadership. And it starts from the top. You know what I mean? Don't want your players, you don't want to beg your players to play for the West Indies, then pay them. Then pay them. All right. But you've got guys that are amazing athletes that are just focusing on making themselves the most appealing possible athlete for these domestic leagues, because the domestic leagues is where they're going to make their money. Bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. Sports Breakdown also says, right on point, Gabe. I was thinking about the same right now, that the West Indies have too many bowlers and have a few specialist batters or bowlers nowadays. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think of it this way, right? One of the one of the really good bowlers that I like this guy this guy is an absolute monster. All right. And I watch him, is Rashid Khan. Now, Rashid Khan, I've also watched him bat sometimes, and he's got some pop in his bat. Rashid Khan, if he spent some time in the nets, could be an all rounder. Rashid Khan's not spending time in the nets. He can naturally hit. He's got some power. But if he was just thinking about how to make myself the most appealing player to get paid, to get that big paycheck, let me make myself an all rounder. Because we saw it in the IPL auction. Those guys get a boatload of cash, right? Look at what Maxwell got in the IPL for the love of Pete. What was it, $2 million? So again, the fact that you've got players that focus on not just one craft, but try to focus on both dual facets of the game is actually hurting the potential that that one player could reach if, let's say, they focused on just batting or on just bowling. Okay. And repetition is the key, the mother of everything, of improving and everything, of learning. I teach, I tell my students that all the time, guys, repetition is the mother of learning. And you want to get better at something, you do it consistently. But if you're dividing your time up between both facets of the game, and not to mention you got to also field, whether you're a batter or bowler, you're also fielding, you're not dedicating as much time as you can to your one craft and that one tool. Might it be if you're a better batter or a bowler? So I mean, I think that, to me, again, what do you think? There's just they don't produce athletes in the Caribbean anymore because what, the water's different? You know what I mean? The food is different. What changed?
Mm.
Nothing changed. They're still athletes. Did Russell not look at those guys? Don't they not look like athletes? Of course they're all athletes. The difference is they're not focusing on building a legit test team where you've got your opener that can last and survive the new balls, and guys that are going to know their roles. They got the guys that are strictly bowlers that are going to give you 20 plus overs, and in that test match. You got guys that are just thinking, nah, I'm gonna focus on this one role for my specific international team. Is I'm gonna focus on turning myself into that specialist that everybody's gonna want in these domestic leagues. And I don't
Yeah,
blame them for that. By the way, I'm not
yeah,
knocking them for that.
yeah,
Make your money, man. Do what you got to do.
yeah. They do. Also, your thoughts on whether Chris Gale, the universe boss, not getting a
Universe.
farewell
Oh,
match from the West Indies Cricket Board as of now. Previous legends of West Indies cricket also didn't get farewell matches. Your thoughts on that, Gabe? Because he did,
man.
the last game he did play was out in that T20 World Cup match against Australia
Right,
last year. That
right,
was
right,
his
right.
last game. Your thoughts on that?
I think we've bashed the West Indies enough. I mean, they just it's again. It starts at the top, and they just ran poorly. Let's just say that. All right. The organization is ran poorly, and I feel bad for the players. The players deserve better. The universe boss deserves better. All right. Andre Russell deserves better. And I don't blame these guys for, basically saying, look, I'm gonna look out for me because you're not looking out for me.
Yeah. Hopefully they can qualify for the T20 World Cup this year, because they're in that qualifying tournament,
Right.
which is a concern. It just shows how badly they played in the last T20 World Cup. They could be in danger of not qualifying directly for the 50 over World Cup next year.
That's
They have to go and play in
that's
that.
a reality. That is a reality.
It's the reality of West Indies cricket at the moment. But let's hope they can get back to some sort of their best.
So
Now, Gabe, you and me, we support this team, and let's talk about Australia. Let's talk about Australian cricket. It's a big summer this summer, Gabe. Australia-Zimbabwe at the end of the month. That's on the 28th of August, ODI series. Australia-New Zealand ODI series. And then all of a sudden, Australia go to India for 3 T20 internationals. That doesn't make sense because T20 World Cup's in Australia, not in India. But anyway, we're going there. And then Australia in the West Indies for 2 T20s. Australia versus England for 3 T20s. Then the T20 World Cup, and then Australia versus England ODI series. And then you got Australia, the West Indies, 2 test matches, and Australia, South Africa, 3 test matches to end the summer. So, Gabe, obviously, how do you think Australia will go this summer in terms of all those matches? And what do you think will be a pass mark for Australia this summer in terms of the international summer? What do you think will be a pass mark for the team?
I think that Australia needs to win. Let's not say should. They need to win all those matches with the exception of the India match. And again, if it was on neutral ground or if it was in Australia, then that's a different story. But playing in the subcontinent, man, those spinning tracks, it's just a beast. You know what I mean? So you don't expect Australia to go into India and beat them, but they should be able to beat New Zealand, right? And Zimbabwe, they better beat Zimbabwe. And I think that Australia, again, they find themselves in a very interesting position because having won the last T20 World Cup, they could theoretically go back to back. They could. I know the West Indies went back to back and won it back to back. They had the opportunity to do so because, outside of India, what other T20 team really scares you? You know what I mean? England, we saw their test team, they got hammered. They got absolutely hammered. And, I think that, of course, you've got other teams, Pakistan, for instance, who had a good showing, had some great bowling that could make some noise, but they have a very, very good opportunity to go in and win back-to-back World Cups. The I think that they've mentioned that the pitches here are kind of flat. If you watch a lot of scores here, they're pretty high. So I think that bodes well for Australians bowlers who are used to pitching, bowling on flat pitches. I think it's set up for them to succeed. Now, as far as ODI is concerned, that's a different story. A little bit of more work has to go in there. And dude, after what I just saw with England, for people to talk about, I know people saying, "Oh, basketball, the Ashes, Australia's gonna." Yeah, okay. There's no concern, not even a little bit of concern. I think that England is not nearly ready for the next Ashes. What are we looking at? 2023, right? Because it was last year.
Yeah, next year in England.
Yeah, next year in England. So England or not, it doesn't matter, man. I'm telling you, they're not. This team right here that we just saw, this English team, they're not beating Australia in a five matches. Maybe one of those. Again, maybe in one that approach will work. But for 5 matches, you think that you're going to approach Patty Cummings and Mitchell Stark and I'm drawing a blank. Jason Hayward. You think you're gonna stop? Those guys are gonna eat you alive, man. They're gonna eat you alive. So unless England changes its approach, it'll be back-to-back T20s and back-to-back Ashes victories for Australia. I mean that's my prediction. Not a whitewash though, Jihan. Jihan's calling for the whitewash, I'm sure.
He probably is. He probably is between the Australia and the West Indies, and probably Australia, South Africa.
I'm sure.
But some questions here from the Sports Breakdown. The 4 Test series between India and Australia next year will be crucial in the context of the WTC. Do you think Australia can win 2 Test matches at least in India? It is going to be tough. That's the biggest test for Pat Cummins as his captaincy career. What do you think, Gabe? Can we beat the juggernaut that is India? They haven't lost a home series in Test matches since 2012. Well, since 2013, sorry. That's the last time. 2012, they lost a series at home.
I'm thinking to myself right now, who's the second spinner that Australia is going to go to? Because you need to. You absolutely need to. Nathan Lyon's not going to be enough. And I mean, he's going to take some scalps, obviously, on those spinning tracks. But who's the next spinner? I mean, because the batsman, you figure David Warner's going to do okay. He's played there in the IPL. He doesn't really struggle, on the spinning pitches.
You got Uzi. He's done pretty well.
Uzi. Oh, Kawaj. Got some Uzi. I do worry a little bit about Cam Green. He
looked good in Sri Lanka, by the way. He looked good in Sri Lanka, the way he played the spinners.
And you know the thing about Cam Green? He either is bowling very well or he's batting very well. Can we get you to do both at once? Again, being an all-rounder, right? Can we get
But
both?
It's hard doing one level pegging as an all-rounder. But he's got some promise, Cameron Green.
Yeah, he does have some promise. Of course, you got Maxey. So I'll be honest. I think they can. Is it too bold to say I think that they can split the series?
We haven't won a Test series in India since 2004, and that was like with Gilchrist, Ponting, Warne, McGrath, and all those legends.
Right.
The last tour in 2017, we lost that series 2-1, and India came back and won that series. We drawed the third Test in Ranchi, and Glenn Maxwell made a century in that match. What I saw from the team in Pakistan to win there on those flat pitches and to draw in Sri Lanka, disappointing not to win the series. We're improving. But it's a big challenge in India, especially with the ball turning as much. It is going to be a battle. But if Australia do well this summer in terms of winning those Test matches against West Indies and South Africa, then it doesn't matter what they do in the India series. Because India need to win majority of those Test matches because they've got 2 series remaining in India, Bangladesh and Australia, to make a case for the final of the WTC. So I think Australia can definitely do well in India, but it's going to be a big challenge. But we've got the players to do it, and I hope we can win over there because it's very hard to win in India. It's hard to win from home.
Now, and I always underestimate New Zealand, and I know people are gonna kill me in the chat. They're gonna be like, Gabe, what happened when New Zealand's garbage and Kane Williamson's garbage? So I said it kind of like, oh, they should beat New Zealand. They should, right? But New Zealand, once again, they've got some good players, and from McConway to, I mean, dude, it's tough when you've got Kane Williamson, you got Conway, you got what's the other boy's name? I can't remember. Sodi. Is it Sodai? I mean, they've got some really, really good players. And I don't know what it is, but they seem to be the best fielding team every single time, no matter who I watch them play, whether it's Australia, whether it's South Africa, whether it's West Indies or India. It's like they've got 13 players on the field. They got, instead of 11, they've managed to whatever their strategy is. It always seems like they got fielders everywhere. It's like whack-a-mole, bro. You cannot find an opening with them. And they're such good fielders that they don't give away free runs. They don't give away cheap runs. You very seldomly see a drop. So I also, as a fan of Australia, I don't want to overlook, and I'm telling you not to overlook and just say, "Oh, we just got to get through India in this summer. We just got to get through India this summer coming up, and we'll be fine." Yeah, New Zealand will also pose a challenge.
Yes, we got some questions on Australian cricket here from the Sports Breakdown. Thank you so much, everyone who's tuned in and provided some questions for me and Gabe here. We're trying our best to answer all of them, so give us some time here. Obviously, where was it? Here it is. He says, I've been very impressed with Pat Cummins' captaincy so far in tests. It isn't easy for a bowler to lead in test cricket, especially being a fast bowler, as you tend to get injuries. Gabe, that was the other question I was going to ask you. How do you think about Pat Cummins, from Tim Payne to Pat Cummins, and the change of leadership and the change of coach as well? How do you see, because he got criticised, Pat Cummins, for what happened with JL, as we all know.
Right.
But how do you see him as a captain thus far in his short test career as captain?
I was concerned when he became captain that he was going to overbowl himself. And honestly, I felt like he was going to overbowl guys. But it's been the quite opposite. I think he's underbowled himself at times and, left some overs out there. So maybe that's to his credit. I still don't know. Obviously, you can't argue with the record, right? He's been a really good captain, successful captain. He's been winning games. But I think that the fear with a captain is that they could either underbowl themselves or overbowl themselves. And I thought that, knowing Pat Cummins, a guy that always wants to bowl, I thought he was going to overbowl himself. But to me, I think it's been quite
chooses the right moments to impact games, like that Sydney Test match where we needed those wickets. He came in and got rid of Butler and Wood with two wonderful deliveries to get them out LBW. He just picks the right moments to come in. So he's got that balance right.
And I think that that's what he does the best. He'll come in when the team needs him, but then he'll put other guys in a position to be successful. And, I think that the way that he's managing, and I really do say managing, because if there is a weakness in Australia, it's definitely Australia, much like England, has struggled with those openers. And outside of David Warner, that door's been revolving, and Bukowski, with the concussions
and Joe Burns, who had that poor run of form in that India series.
Yeah, Joe Burns, and he's just been managing to get enough out of his batsmen and put him in the right position.
David Warner doesn't have long to go in his career.
Yeah,
Steve Smith's been a bit down in form.
Yeah.
And then you got Marnus, and then Travis Head's been a bit poor in the subcontinent of late. And you got Cameron Green, and you got Alex Carey as keeper.
Right. Think about that. So that's what he's working with. A aging David Warner, Smudge, who, like you said, can be up and down. I was absolutely hammering. I wanted him gone because I wanted Uzi on the side so bad, because I'm a fan of Uzi, and I'm like, please, I don't understand why they refuse to give Uzi a shot. You know what I mean? And Uzi's gotten a couple opportunities, but not as many as I think he can. And I think in his last game I saw he put up like 70 runs, right? He opened. But then, I feel like it took him so long, and they pushed Travis Head so much. And I'm like, come on, the guy was just better, flat out. I know that he was a JL's guy, but he was just better. And Cam Green, will either bat very well. He can give you 50, 60, 70. I think that same game with Uzi, if I'm not mistaken, he also put up 70 or so in the first inning. But then he gets, they don't even put him to bowl, because he's so inconsistent, man. He's so inconsistent. I don't know. I don't know what it is about Cam Green. Like he's either one or the other. And to me, his bat isn't just an what do you call it? He's not dominant enough to just be a batter. So he needs to be an all-rounder. And it's funny because people told me, well, in the beginning of his career, Gabe, he was more of a bowler and couldn't bat. But so now he's batting and can't bowl. I mean, what?
That's the thing with all-rounders, really. They either start out as a bowling all-rounder or a batting all-rounder, and he's more of a batting all-rounder, but he's got a lot of potential. They didn't bowl him much in Sri Lanka because they didn't need to, because especially in that first test, Nathan Lyon and Mitchell Swepson got the majority of the wickets because it was turning.
Jack, give me one. And I know we're live, man. Give me 1 second. I got to take this real quick.
That's fine, Gabe. You got to do what you got to do.
Oh, I can't remove myself from the screen. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I got to do that. Sorry, everyone. Gabe's got to dip out for a minute, but he'll be back with us just after this. So, yeah. Sorry about that, everyone. I know that everyone's got a lot of questions here. Obviously, Gabe has to take a phone call, but he'll be back very shortly. Purlish Singh, how are you? I hope you're well. Sports Bit, how are you? Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the live stream. It's a great discussion that me and Gabe are having. Gabe will be right back. He's just got to attend to something, and he'll be back in just a few minutes. But keep those questions coming in. We're trying our best to answer all of them as we can. There's been a lot of questions, so thanks everyone who's been watching as well. So we'll continue on answering your questions on everything. So I'll try and answer some questions while Gabe is busy. No, I think Gabe is ready. I think he's. You're good, Gabe?
Yeah, I'm good. It was just a family thing, and I was like, wait, I gotta answer this because it's late on my side over here, and yes. I'm like getting a call this late. I was like, okay, it could be something an emergency.
But family's important, everyone. You make sure you hug and love your family members because time is so precious, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Where were we? Everyone's got questions here. I can't keep track. It's like on CFA with the live stream, everyone with the chat going everywhere. We're trying our best, everyone, but thank you so much. I really appreciate. We've gone for 2 hours. It's a marathon innings here, but we're plowing through it. We've got lots to talk about, and we love talking cricket, do we, Gabe? I know.
Absolutely.
This question here, Gabe, from the Sports Breakdown. Also, I want to ask this from both of you. Why do Australian batters generally struggle with left arm orthodox spinners? I've seen many times in Test cricket, Australia batters struggle, especially in Tests. Yeah, we have, because they're not easy to play. Left arm spinners turning the ball, especially in that game against Sri Lanka. Correct me if I'm wrong, Power, and if you're watching, Pradap Jayasuriya, he's a left arm spinner, isn't he? I think he is. So we struggled against him in that second test. I don't know why. It's just techniques, how we brought up on wickets in Australia.
I think because you see so little of them, you know what I mean? And yeah, that's a good question. I'm not the one to ask. I'm not the one to ask. The nuances of the game, you know what I mean? Like
you're still trying to grasp those.
Yeah. That still eludes me. Like in baseball, I can tell you exactly, why a lefty will stir on a lefty, or why, you would let's say play a certain field for a certain batter, whether it's ready a lefty, why you would shift. But in cricket, that's still some of the things I struggle with. And sometimes it's funny, like you'll see a bowler, bowl a short ball to get pumped. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, listen. It's so hard to be consistent when you're line the lengths, and it's so hard to nail that Yorker. And it drives me crazy.
Yes, he is a left arm spinner, Power says, and also Rangana Hereford was as well. Yes, he was. Pulish Singh says the straight ones from left-handers keep them confused and uncertain. Arm ball or left armour is lethal. Yes, they are. You got to have that variation in the attack. Where was the other questions that I had here? Here we go. Steve Smith. Do you also think that Steve Smith should focus on Test cricket and should let go of T20 internationals because it seems he has lost his groove in Test cricket a bit? Should he just do what Joe Root did? What do you think,
Yes,
Gabe?
yes, because
You think he should?
I've seen Steve Smith look amazing in tests, and for some reason he just looks lost whenever I watch him play T20. He really does, and especially the last few seasons that I watched him play in the IPL, he looked terrible, just terrible. And he's in between. He doesn't, I think he's one of those batsmen that has to build an inning, just can't start firing. And he needs like a lot of information to be able to read the pitch, read what the bowlers are doing. And again, in T20, you almost got to start firing from ball one. You know what I mean? You can't just chew up 2 overs, 12 deliveries trying to read the pitch and see what the bowlers are doing and get their timing and cadences down and stuff like that. So I think that, you know, the he's a student of the game. And Steve Smith is a student of the game, but that benefits you in the longer format of the game because now you can use what you learned in the later on, you know what I mean, later on in the innings. But again, the limited overs, it's you're firing from ball one, and I think that's where he struggles a lot.
Yeah, he does, and it's a bit slower for him as well. T20 cricket for him, it's sort of not his forte. It's more one day in Test cricket for Steve Smith, I think.
Right.
Well, because players can't play 3 formats anymore, so you probably just have to give up a format if he wants to keep playing at the top level.
You're gonna see so many players start giving up formats, and I'm telling you,
Yes.
the
Most of the sports
the
breaks. Yeah, sorry, Gabe. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Stokes walking away.
Yeah.
Get ready for more of that.
Yeah. Also, thoughts on who can actually replace Nathan Lyon in the future. I know he has many years left in Test cricket, but I do feel Swepson need to be a bit consistent with his lines. So who do you think is going to take his place? Because he's been playing since 2011, Nathan Lyon, and he's one of the best off spinners that we've ever had. So who do you think is going to replace him? If you could think of any names, but
I mean, you already said the name, Swepson, right? Swepson looked good in that last match. He what was the second match? He had a 3-wicket haul, decent economy rate. I mean, he's not Nathan Lyon, right? Nathan Lyon will give you 20, 25 overs, and it seems like his economy rate is always under 4. It'll be, 2s, 3s. But I do like Swepson. I like his stuff, and I think that he has the ability to get some of those bad wickets. Does that make sense? The players will put themselves in a bad position trying to take him on, and like, what do you do? I'll take it. It's like the balls sometimes look so bad that they're just
like
I
half
can take it.
trackers and stuff.
Yeah,
Full
you
toss.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be the replacement. That's a logical replacement, right? Because now he's got multiple innings so far under his belt of T20, and he's done it not T20. I'm sorry, of cricket. And yeah, it was in that Sri Lanka match where he took, I think, 5 total. It was one innings he took 3 wickets, another one he took 2. So I like Swepson. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think Mitch can do that. What he's thinking about there is with his lines, he can be a bit inconsistent, but all leg spinners are like that. You just got to give him time and confidence. People were on his back after what happened in Pakistan, but that was Pakistan. It would have been different in Sri Lanka, and it was because he took wickets, and I was glad for him that he took wickets.
Right.
He's a young guy. Well, he's not young-ish. He's in his late 20s, but he's got experience. So if he can build on that, he probably won't play in the Australian summer. He'll probably get a go in India. That will be the next series for him. Definitely play 2 spinners in India. But definitely one to look out for there. Another question from the Sports Breakdown. What do you think about the resurgence of Josh Hazlewood in the past 2 years in all 3 formats? For me, it seems that Stark has declined a bit and Hazlewood is in his prime. Any thoughts on that, Gabe? Because he is a good T20 bowler now, Josh Hazlewood.
He won the IPL for the Chennai Super Kings. I mean, he is an absolute animal with the ball. Josh Hazlewood, I called him Patty Cummings light. All right, he's so consistent on his lines and lengths. He really is. and he's got the ability to delivery after delivery, just put the ball where he wants. And you know, I don't think calling him Patty Cummings light is disrespectful. You know what I mean? I just think that he's not quite there at the Patty Cummings level. But yes, the last 2 years, and yeah, even in T20, he's been really, really good, really, really consistent. And that two-headed monster, again, Mitchell Stark. I don't think any of them have stuff. And in baseball, we call guys pitches stuff, just pure stuff. You know what I mean? Patty Cummings doesn't have the stuff Mitchell Cummings does. He just doesn't. Neither does Josh Hazelwood. But Stark is always hurt, and he's at times very inconsistent. And you're like, I don't get it. With the arm this guy has, just why isn't he more consistent with his lines and length? And why
He's
isn't
probably not that sort of bowler, really. He's more
it,
erratic. That's how he
yeah,
bowls.
that's what it is. He's erratic. He's just erratic. You know what I mean?
He sort of reminds me of Mitchell Johnson in his early part of his career, where he's a bit he's a left armer as well, and he was a bit over the place bowling wides and down the leg side of that. Stark can be like that, but when he gets it right, he gets it right. When he bowls those Yorkers to the tail, he's lethal. So he's still a valuable asset to this Australian bowling attack. But
for sure.
At times he can be a bit inconsistent with his lines and lengths, but Australia do like him because of that left arm variation, especially in the subcontinent when you have that ball reversing. And
it gives a different look. It gives a different look from obviously a Patty Cummings and a Josh Hazelwood, who are right-handers. But again, I've seen innings, man. I've seen innings, man, where he will bowl 3 or 4 just wides in a row, man, and it just drives me crazy, man. It really does.
Bendover says Stark and Bolt were unplayable in 2015. Now they are just as good. Yeah, even Trent Bolt's pretty good as well. What he's done there. Another question here from Pulish. Who are the spinners in domestic for Australia? Any good ones? Not many I can think of at the moment. There's no one really banging down the door to replace Nathan Lyon or anything like that. There's some around. I think Todd Murphy from Victoria is a good one to look out for. He's been playing some cricket for Victoria. He's a promising bowler. So we'll see how he goes there. Now, Gabe, let's move on to our next topic. It's a bit of a marathon, this chat, but thanks everyone for sticking with us. We're getting there. We're nearly finished, everyone. Let's talk about cricket in the Olympics, Gabe. And it was talked about a few weeks ago, I think, that the cricket's been shortlisted for the LA Games in 2028, and the ICC have to prepare a presentation for them, for the committee. And also for the Brisbane Games in 2032, because the next Olympics after that will be in Brisbane in Australia. And Cricket Australia are launching this program to get cricket into the Olympics in that edition. Do you see cricket being in the Olympics in LA, Gabe? Because, it's up to the committee to decide whether or not they should have cricket in the Olympics or not.
I think they should. And I'll take it a step farther. I think it's going to happen. One of the things that Nick and I heard a lot when we were down there in Florida was, obviously USA Cricket. People were excited about it, and we heard obviously about the IPL coming out here, but we also heard about cricket in the Olympics, man. And if that happens, I think that it's really going to, on an international stage, just blow up, right? You're gonna get so much more interest from other countries, and it's just a much bigger platform. So I think it's gonna happen. I hope it happens. I'm excited if it does. To your point, it's here. So that'd be such a cool event to attend. I would just question again, are we gonna get the best players? Because think about that. If it's cricket in the Olympics, you want the best players there, right? I'm assuming it'd be just like the basketball in the Olympics. Doesn't matter. They're gonna have the NBA guys play in the Olympics. So are countries gonna send? Are we gonna see a Barack Kohli? And I know you would think he's a pro. Oh, so what? You see James Harden in the Olympics. You know what I mean? He's a pro. You want to send your best, right? So, and along with the domestic leagues and the commitment to tests and all the other schedules that are out there, like would they restrict their players from going? I don't even know how that would work, man. But I think it's gonna happen. I hope it happens, and I think that it will help grow the game.
I think it will as well. Be interesting to see how it goes. It'd be great. It would be great for USA Cricket if that was able to happen. I think they're pushing that as well, but purely it's up to the organising committee to make that decision. It's in their hands.
Right.
But we did see women's cricket at the Commonwealth Games, which is like the Olympics, but for Commonwealth nations. And cricket was first played at the Commonwealth Games in 1998. That was the men's. They played one-day cricket. And South Africa won the gold medal, actually. And Australia won silver, New Zealand won bronze. And then they brought cricket back this year, but women's cricket only. And Australia won the gold medal, obviously, because they're the strongest team. India won silver and New Zealand won bronze, defeating England in that bronze medal match. So it can work, like a T20 sort of style. It can work. You have to include men and female if it goes to the Olympics. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I'm not sure about LA, to be honest. I'm confident about Australia because it's Australia. I'm not so confident about America, LA, because, I think the other sports they listed there, Gabe, I think it's competing with other sports. Here's what they're competing for. Baseball, softball, flag football, lacrosse, breakdancing, karate, kickboxing, squash, and motorsport are the other 9 sports that are competing with cricket for the Olympics in 2028.
Right. Well, I mean, I can tell you that I think baseball is already losing a lot of audience, and it's they call it America's pastime, but I just don't see it. Plus, they got the World Baseball Classics already, so it's like they've already got their other tournament. Those other karate, lacrosse. I mean, I believe, they've been in there already. Breakdancing, I can't see breakdancing topping cricket. And again, the fact that
it doesn't make sense.
yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a pathway for sure to be there. And LA actually is going to be one of the venues for the IPL league that's coming out here. So they're already going to have that built-in audience out there of cricket fans. I just think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, hopefully we do see that in 2028. But I'm not sure about it. I'm sure about Australia. I'm confident about that. Not so much with LA, because the organising committee, you see. How many of them have watched cricket? Probably not.
Right. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, I see what you're saying, but I just don't. If they were up against flag football, really, if they were up against more serious competition, I'd be like, okay, but really?
But based on that list, you will think that cricket will get the go-ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. There was nothing concerning in there. Like, oh my gosh, they're going up against.
Yeah. Ben Over says it's stupid that a game like cricket isn't included in the Olympics, and some weird unpopular sport is included. Yeah, we just talked about that. Imagine motorsport winning a gold medal for coming first across the line, or breakdancing. I don't know what the Olympics are doing, but they
what do you call it? Badminton. Yeah, badminton in the Olympics. Come on.
I like badminton. I played it in high school in PE. It's pretty good. I prefer it over tennis, really.
Really?
But we'll see what happens, I think. We'll wait and see what happens on the Olympics. But cricket hasn't been in the Olympics since 1900, so it's been a long time. Let's talk about cricket's different formats over the years, Gabe. Now, some of these ones you've probably heard of, like the 100, T10 cricket.
Yes.
Did you hear? Have you heard about Cricket Max? I think you reacted to a video of Sachin Tendulkar in that match in New Zealand.
Right.
Yeah. So that was Cricket Max that was invented. in the 90s by Martin Crowe. Hong Kong Super Sixes was a competition that was played up until 2017 in Hong Kong. It had pretty much the international teams play that competition, and obviously T10 cricket, the 3-team cricket in South Africa. It's where they played it in 2020, where you had 3 teams play the one game of cricket, and whoever got the most runs won a gold medal, silver and bronze. It was a one-off charity match sort of thing, tournament, whatever. And then you have the 60. You heard of that in the Caribbean, the new format that they're launching there? The 60?
Yes.
Sort of copying the 100 in a way.
Yeah. Renil, I think, told me about it. And I was
Gabe, we keep doing this. Creating these formats just for the sake of it. What are your thoughts on this? Is it because attention spans, you got to create a format that's fast, quick, and sort of dumb it down for people who haven't watched cricket all their life? I don't see any point in it, really. It's just a waste of time. I can understand experimentation and all that, but where do you sit on that in terms of creating formats just for the sake of it?
They're trying to find a happy medium between the cricket fans, right? The diehard cricket fans, and the TV product that they want. Now, T10, right? They try to shorten it as possible, make it as short as possible. That's not even cricket. People are, no, come on, we can't do it, right? So you've got a T20 and obviously the 100 now, where they're trying, it's got to be a TV product. It just has to. So they want to give people that longer format that they'll enjoy, and more than bottom line, they'll accept, right? And that it will be accepted by the announcers, right? Because sometimes you even get announcers. I think it's Ian Bishop Ian Bishop that normally doesn't like T20 cricket. I can't remember.
Michael Holding.
Yeah, Michael Holding. Michael Holding just, badmouths it all the time. So if you get a product out there that they feel that the respected legends of the game will support and embrace, then that's a happy medium they're probably trying to find. But they're also trying to please the stakeholders and, you name it, XYZ company that's the one playing for TV commercials and airtime and syndication rights. And I was reading the other day, the same company, I don't know how this happens, but the same company gets the rights for the IPL as they did for Australian cricket on Disney or whatever, because Disney now owns ESPN. So really it's ESPN. Holy cow. You know what I mean? Bro, that's dope. That's money. You know what I mean? So I think that I know people don't care about that. They just like their game. But if it's not a viable television product, then it just won't be on television. You'll have to, watch it on obscure streaming platforms and, pay a ton to watch these games, because if the bigger platforms don't carry it, then, even nowadays, it's hard to find some matches. And for instance, if USA matches, for the most part, we've gotten a couple, and I was so happy to get it on Willow TV, and we got a few on ESPN. But for the most part, some of the matches we were watching was on, YouTube, bro, streaming it off of like a bad camera service or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it was just, you need the major networks, man. And unfortunately, that comes with marketing, and they want a shorter product. That's just the bottom line.
But do you think it's just doing it too much? Do you think it's confusing people even more who haven't watched cricket, like you and Nick, for example? Like,
right.
Would you get confused by watching these formats if you didn't watch a proper game of cricket, like Test cricket or ODIs or T20s? Would you be confused if you watch these formats?
Yes, absolutely. And, luckily we started off with Tests. But even I remember watching in the 100, I'm like, there was some weird rules in the 100. And I was like, what? And even in the Big Bash, there's some different variations, different rules. And you're like, so yeah, I think that from that perspective, you're right. It does get confusing.
Yeah. I think the 100, it implemented that that rule you like, Gabe, where the new batsman has to face, and it doesn't
The
matter
new
about
ball.
crossing anymore.
I love that. I love that.
Nice to see you
That
brought that
is,
in from the 100.
yeah, because that was such an advantage for batters. Now, advantage bowler. Yeah, give me the new guy that's not been on the crease, that isn't settled in. Hold that, cousin. And especially if you're towards the tail end, you know what I mean? And let's say I saw it not too recently. I forgot what match it was. They were trying everything in their power to keep whoever on the strike. It might have been during the England versus India series, but there like 3 wickets fell, consecutive, boom, 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 and was it who was it that was left with? It might have been Moeen. I can't remember, with his bat in his hand. You know what I mean? A guy that could have got you those extra runs you needed, but now that new batsman, usually it's a bowler that's coming in, has to face the new ball, not the new ball, but has to face that first ball off of a bowler who's established when they haven't even had any time on the crease. It's advantage bowler for sure. I love it.
Absolutely. That rule's not that law, that playing condition's not coming into October, so we'll see it in the T20
Oh,
World Cup. That's for sure.
but it's coming. Oh, but it's coming.
It's coming. It's coming. So yeah. So I think for the women's 100, I think that's a positive for the women's game. So I see a positive in that. Because women's cricket doesn't have a lot of franchise cricket as it is. It's only the WBBL and the women's 100. And then probably next year you're having a women's IPL in March, apparently. So for the women's game, it's good for the women's 100, but for the men's, not as much because there's enough franchise cricket. I can see what the ECB are trying to do, get a new audience in, but people it's hard for me to explain because I'm not in England, not from England. So, for those people who are living in England, they're saying different things like, oh, we like it, we don't like it. But I guess the main thing is that you're seeing children there, kids, families, and I think that's good. But whereas other people don't like it. I think the sports breakdown said a question here. Here we go. What actually happened to the Hong Kong Super Sixers? Thanks, Jack, for making me remember this. I love this format way back in the 2000s era. The issue was that the less profile players from each nation took part. Yes, the last tournament was in 2017. So, yeah, they used to play that a lot back in the day. And then they stopped. I don't know why. I don't know why they did that. They just decided to not continue with it.
Viewership, man. It either wasn't profitable or viewership. That's what it boils down to. Because you could better believe that if it was successful and it was getting viewership and they're making money, they ain't stopping. What, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, listen, that's all about, man. It's about ratings and viewership. If they're getting them, that means they got sponsors, they got money coming in. If they don't, they don't. Simple.
Yeah, it is. We're finally there, Gabe. The last topic of this discussion. Hooray.
There we go.
We're going to be talking about the international schedule because that's been announced with the Future Tours program. And it's quite alarming, Gabe. The amount of cricket, the next cycle from next year to 2027, 173 test matches, 281 ODIs, and 326 T20 internationals. Compare that to this cycle, the current cycle at the moment, 151 test matches, 241 ODIs, and 301 T20 internationals. So that number is increasing year on year. Also, Gabe, for your West Indies, they do play the most T20 internationals in this cycle. They play 73 matches out of everyone else. They play the most. In terms of test matches, no surprise, England play the most, 43. And for ODIs, it's Bangladesh actually with 59. So they play the most matches combined of all the three formats with 150 as well, Bangladesh.
Interesting.
So with the rapid rise of T20 leagues domestically, there's a lot of cricket being played and scheduled, which is quite ridiculous when you look at it, but that's what the ICC have done.
I'm going to tell you right now, unsustainable. Unsustainable. You're going to get a lot of canceled matches. You're going to get a lot of canceled matches, and you're going to get a lot of matches where we're not going to see the top players for, pick a country, England, Australia, India. You're not going to see some of those players in there because they're playing in those domestic leagues and for their home countries, and they're again, for instance, you just saw South Africa pull out of that ODI match because we were talking about it, the ODI match with Australia, because they're trying to push their domestic league out there. So it's unsustainable. I'll tell you right now, you're gonna add matches. People are already talking about there's too much cricket, and you're gonna add matches. That's just dumb. That's just dumb. I don't know.
Well, it is unsustainable because the current schedule as it is, the current system that they use, planning for the next 4 years, is sort of like you're sort of doing that and you're just hoping that, okay, there's no problems, but there's no break or rest, recuperation time in between series or match, because cricket touring is such a hard thing to do because it's not like other sports where you play domestically. You're touring, playing countries around the world for months on end, playing all 3 formats. I had this discussion with Mark from Opening Up, and I said, is there a potential mental crisis on our hands? And he said, potentially yes. But he knew some people in the ICC, and he said they're sort of thinking about it. But I don't see any plan on mental health or well-being from the ICC. I don't see any of that in terms of how they do the schedule, because you're going to see more players like Stokes, like Bolt, retire or give up their contract because they can't play all 3 formats, and probably it's going to be the end of the 3-format player as we know it. Right. Because the ICC cricket boards just care about money. You play the series in and out. We get the money. We get paid. That's all it is. TV rights, all that stuff as well. But how do you see it, Gabe? Do you think there should be a plan for mental health and well-being? Do you think there's any strategy that the ICC have? Because it doesn't look like it with the schedule.
Okay, those are 2 different questions. Should there be? Yes. Does the ICC have one? No, not even a little bit. But to be fair, no, and I mean absolutely no. It's not that they don't have a plan. It's that, what would the plan be? The plan would be, okay, well, let's back up on the schedule. Let's cut back on games. Let's cut back on, and they're never going to want to do that, because if you reduce games, you're reducing revenue, right? And ultimately, it's a business. So I think that they're being a little short-sighted, because yes, while you don't want to cut the amount of games because you're cutting on revenue, what you are doing is you're going to diminish the product, because you're not going to have the best players out there, because some of them are going to be struggling with some mental health issues. Case in point, earlier in our discussion, somebody mentioned, which I don't know to be true, I have not read that article myself, but that Virat Kohli mentioned mental health, and that him not being around his loved ones, and his loved ones leaving him at some points, and you know what I mean. Like listen, it's the last 2.5-3 years has been a strain on everyone, but specifically for these athletes that were really put up against it, they were some of the first people thrust back into the public eyesight, and to compete and to try to combat these bubbles and restrictions and travel and everything that came along with it. Yeah, mental health is definitely an issue. I see it at school now with students, you know what I mean? Still haven't fully assimilated to being back in an academic environment. And I think that, unfortunately, not just cricket, but all sports don't look at players as people, as humans. You know what I mean? They look at them as
robots, and
they're commodities. They're commodities. Bottom line, you are an asset. You know what I mean? You are an asset. You're a commodity. You are our product. And they forget that there's a person behind there. You know what I mean? And a person that has already struggled with all the challenges everybody else has struggled over the last 3 years. So I can't believe they did it, but man,
it's just ridiculous, because looking at it, and as cricket fans, there's so much cricket on, you can't really cover, like your channel, you and Nick can't cover everything. Right. You can't talk about every series or whatever. I can't do that on my channel, because it's impossible because there's so much cricket on.
obviously India and Australia, West Indies, and now USA, because it's going to be here, games we can actually watch live. That's what we're trying to really venture into. But there's not enough to. There's just way too many matches, way too many teams playing, way too many leagues, and it's good that there's always cricket on. I mean, any time of year there's cricket on, basically. But at the same time, I think that it's diminished the product a little bit as we're losing some of the best players either to retirement or just to injuries. It comes to mind Jafar Archer, right? The injury, playing all three formats, playing in the IPL and the CPL, and then he broke down. And the guy was an absolute talent. And or guys just retiring like Faf, right? Retires from international cricket, still playing in the IPL though, still playing in the BBL. I think he's BBL, right? Faf playing in the BBL, still playing in those
Yeah,
domestic
he's
leagues.
playing the BBL this year. Yeah.
Making that money, but he's not playing for South Africa. He's not playing for his home country. So that's a sad thing. And we saw the same thing. We didn't, obviously, because we weren't following cricket at the time. But yeah, look, MS Dhoni retired from international cricket long before Nick and I started watching cricket. But we saw about 2-3 seasons of MS Dhoni playing, in the IPL. I think he's may come back again this next season. So the reality is that you're forcing players to make financial decisions, and when they are, they're going to make the decision that it makes sense for them and their families.
Sort of like Trent Bolt in a way we discussed earlier, really,
right.
Because he made that decision, and sadly that's the reality of it. But what they did announce, the ICC, is that more women's games are increased. 7 test matches over the next four years, 135 ODIs and 159 T20 internationals.
That's great.
That's good for the women's game. I think more people would say more test matches than 7, because that's the thing in the women's game. But that's a start. Hopefully that number keeps going up year on year. But that's good for the women's game. For the men's side of things, they play too much, whereas the women play too little.
Right.
That's the problem. How do you get women's cricket's different to men's cricket in that way because of the scheduling and how it operates, and that they have a different system, different way they go about it. Sports Breakdown says here, it seems like Bangladesh and the West Indies have the most matches, but I feel mentally it will surely take a toll on these cricketers along with franchise cricket. Yes, the West Indies play 147 matches combined over the next 4 years. In front of me here, they played 26 test matches, 48 ODIs, and 73 T20s. Whereas Bangladesh, they play 150 matches combined, and that's 34 test matches, 59 ODIs, and 57 T20 nationals. So, and he also says, since Bangladesh does the Bangladesh Premier League and the West Indies carry out the CPL, I think it's just cricket boards that are money hungry, if that makes sense, Gabe. They just want money and they just want to schedule the games in so they get the profits in and make money.
That is, come on, that's human nature, man. That's human nature, and that's all it is. You know what I mean?
It is.
Want the money in there.
Yeah, it's just.
What do you expect? What do you expect?
Yeah, you sort of expect that because they're just making money. Cricket's a money-making operation, really. Sport is. Ever since you put up a fence and charge people for tickets, it's always been about money, and people get greedy. And it's the same in cricket as well. But I think that's done it, Gabe. I think we've reached all the topics, but there's some questions that we have to answer to finish up.
Sure.
But thanks for everyone for sticking with us. It's been a long marathon, long innings. But some people got some questions. We'll try and answer them before we get out of here. Sports Breakdown, first of all, says, do you think Test cricket should be expanded and more teams deserve to get Test status in the future? Do you think the WTC there should be relegated or relegation as well for teams that end up in 9th and 10th position? What do you think of that, Gabe?
No, you're absolutely right. Here's the thing. And sometimes you need to invest in the product. I think the ICC needs to invest in the product by looking at not necessarily, and this is where I'm going to be again a little selfish as an American, but not necessarily just the teams that have the best records, the associate teams, but the ones that may have the the largest revenue streams, right? The ones that may be able to that they can expand to. Like, look, case in point, NFL's king of the sports. It's look it up online, man. Billions of dollars, billions of dollars. What are they doing? They're expanding to Mexico. They're expanding to Canada. They're putting NFL teams out there. We're like, what? Yeah, they understand that in order to continue to grow the product, you have to expand internationally. And the way to do that is look at the markets where you've got people that have expendable income, right? Because it's expensive. It's expensive to buy gear. It's expensive to watch these games on TV. It's expensive to go to a game. You know what I mean? Buy food, whatever. Buy a drink. So you want to go to places that you have people that have some expendable income, but that you've got also large fan bases that are used to rooting for teams, will embrace the team. Um, and again, United States, they got a lot of people that are used to following teams, and it took a while for football, international football, I should say, to take off here. And but the MLS is here; they're making money. You've got the league's been going now for close to 10 years, a decade, and I think they did it correctly, right? When they came, David Beckham, they threw the I remember, I don't know if you remember, but it was one of the most lucrative contracts at the time. People were like, David Beckham's not worth $250 million. He's an aged, European, I think, soccer player or football player. Yeah, but he's a name, and he's a name people know, and he was used as a platform to sell the sports to America, to legitimize the sport. So, you know, again, I think that at the expense of sounding arrogant, right? But if you've got to go to those places that have large populations, that have expendable income, that will spend the money, and US is one of those places. Obviously, I think you mentioned, was it Japan or China earlier? China, you said, had the sixes. What was the name of that
Hong Kong
league?
Sixers, Hong Kong Sixers.
Hong Kong Sixes. All right. And yeah, places like Hong Kong, like I mean, I'm trying to think of other places internationally, because if you look at the World Baseball Classic, right? Netherlands, Japan, Korea. Korea is actually very big into sports, and Korea has some dominant athletes, man. So I wonder if Korea has a cricket team, but again, that would be a place that if they do play cricket, you want to those fans will already, you know what I mean, used to rooting, used to going out there. That's just ingrained in the culture. So I don't know how to explain it, because I also have met, I've traveled a lot, and I've gone to places where sports aren't really ingrained into the culture, and if it's not, you're not going to see people dedicate hours of their life to watching games and to spending, thousands of dollars a year to buy apparel and go to games and stuff like that. It's got to be ingrained into the culture already, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's sort of like if you're growing up with it and it's a part of the culture of your country or whatever. Like here in Australia, cricket every summer, play cricket. It's ingrained in you from a young age. So yeah, but it's important for the ICC to keep expanding and keep giving countries test status. Maybe the USA, Gabe. And I did read a report that they said we want test status by 2030 or something.
Yeah, that's been the word. Nate from USA Cricket talked about it, and he's not sure how much of a reality that is, but that's the hope, and they're hoping that with possibly, obviously, 2024 we got the T20 World Cup, and then of course the Olympics. Hopefully, if cricket does make it into the Olympics, that'll give it enough steam that, okay, we'll put the money behind it and get the investors to, and the what do you call it, the sponsors to push a, and get, because again, that's the problem. Tests just cost so much money to have those, huge test matches and travel with the entire team. Like, I get it. I understand why it's an expensive venture. A test match can be played over 2 months or whatever. You got to house those players for that amount of time. You got to feed those players for that amount of time. You travel. It's not a cheap thing. So I understand the logistics of it, why it's so expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And some cricket boards don't make money from it either. They lose money from test matches because no one watches them. Like the West Indies, for example, there's barely anyone there, which is sad, really. Because they had many crowds back in the day.
They're losing.
It's sad. Yeah,
Nobody goes to. If when you win, people follow. When you lose, they don't. It's just that simple.
Yeah, it's just the way it goes.
Hardcore fans will go no matter what, but people want to have a good time and they enjoy when their teams win. When they lose, then you only got miserable people like you and I that'll go there. You know what I mean? We're gonna go and get mad that our team is losing, even though we knew they were gonna lose. But we're gonna go and watch them, or we're gonna watch them on TV. But that's just how the what do you call the casual fan is.
He also asked the Sports Breakdown. Also, what do you think about Pakistan players not taking part in the IPL or not even having a bilateral series against India? As a neutral fan, I want to see an India versus Pakistan test match in the future. Yes, it's probably not going to happen for a long time, or if ever.
Listen, the
only
politics that goes behind that, I just don't see it happening. Yeah.
No, only in T20 World Cups or World Cups you'll see that. And the match against India and Pakistan at the MCG for this T20 World Cup's packed, so it's already sold out.
He said it's already sold out.
Well, I remember the one in Adelaide, the 2015 50-over World Cup that was played in Adelaide between the two countries. That was sold out like in minutes. It's the same as the T20 World Cup match. India and Pakistan, always a big rivalry, and it's a shame that we don't see them play Test cricket anymore because of all that complicated stuff. But hopefully we do, we hope, but I don't see it happening in the very near future. They're working on it, but probably not going to happen, I'm afraid. The Sports Breakdown also says, what do you think about the rule in T20 international cricket where if a team doesn't bowl the overs within a permitted time of the last 5, one fielder has to be taken out of the 30-yard circle? So this is sort of like the thing that they have in the 100 with the over rates. That's another thing that T20 cricket have got from the 100. What do you think about that, Gabe? Sort of disadvantages the bowler a bit, having a fielder not outside the circle.
You know what? Pace of play. And that's what I'm thinking about. It's the same thing in baseball, right? And people hate it, but you have to understand it's got to be a quick game. You want to try to get it in that time frame of 2.5 hours. Pace of play is a big thing. NFL does not struggle with it. 2 hours average game. Even there are games that may go into like overtime, still are done within 3 hours, right? Usually it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, something like 2 hours and 30 minutes. NBA game, if you ever watch an NBA game, again, 4 quarters goes quick, boom, even overtime games, you're done 2.5 hours. You go to a baseball game, it's a marathon, man. You can have games go for literally 7-8 hours. You know what I mean? It's insane. And then we're getting into ODI status. You know what I'm saying? So pace of play. All I gotta say is pace of play, and that's goes back to trying to make it fit into that television schedule so that you get, example. Every time we watch BBL, KFC is a big sponsor, right? KFC wants those games, and they want their advertising so that people go and buy that chicken, and that's just real. You know what I'm saying? It's advertising dollars, man. Advertising dollars. What do you think? Pays for these athletes huge contracts, and it is what it is, man. I know people are gonna say, Gabe, do you work for the boards? No, I don't, but I know how the business works. I know how the business works.
You know how it operates.
I know how it operates, man. I know the background.
Maybe a cricket board should employ you, Gabe, and be a part of their marketing strategy.
Oh, man. Oh, don't I wish. I'd fix the West Indies right up.
Yeah. Maybe, you know, we'll go over to West Indies and say, right, we need to do this and that, get us back on top again to the glory days. He also asked the Sports Breakdown, who do you think will reach the semi-finals of the T20 World Cup this year? Any predictions, any thoughts on unexpected teams reaching the semis, Gabe?
Unexpected teams.
Or do you think it will be the same as last year?
That's a tough question because my heart wants to say the West Indies, but what I've seen out of the West Indies, just if I'm being candid, no, I just don't see the West Indies making it. You know, again, I'm not really too confident that England, who obviously they didn't make it to the finals last year, but they started off the tournament, they were gangbusters, but they've just been the white ball team, both the ODI and T20 team has been, mediocre at best under this new regime, at best, and that's being kind. All right, so I feel like they're putting all their focus back into tests. You know what I mean? Owen Morgan talked about it when he had first took over that, when he first took over as the captain for ODIs, all the focus prior to that had just been on the test team. I think that's where it's going back to. You see some guys playing on a test squad that normally would play on the, ODI team or even on the T20 team. And you don't see that right now. You see guys leaving the ODI team or leaving the T20 team. And yeah, it's probably going to be Australia and India, or Australia and I don't know what the brackets are, but Pakistan has a shot simply because Pakistan, has some great bowling, but then their bats are kind of suspect. So, in a perfect world, we get my West Indies in there, but I don't see it, man. Dark horse, dare to dream. A dark horse. I mean, you can't call New Zealand a dark horse because they got in. What's a team that could? Let's be honest. Namibia is not.
Sri Lanka.
I was gonna say Namibia is not going to get in there. Let's be real.
Maybe a Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, maybe. Sort of unexpected. You never know. They've done pretty well in World Cup tournament. They did well in 2015, but I know that's 50 over World Cup. But
South Africa, okay, there you go.
South Africa, sorry, I forgot that. Yeah, South Africa.
I'm like, Bangladesh, really to win the whole thing? What are you nuts? That's not gonna happen.
To win the whole thing, but maybe to cause an upset or something.
I'm like, okay,
no, but South Africa's a good one because they are playing some good T20 cricket at the moment. They won against England.
That's what I'm saying. Like South Africa could be a dark horse, but if I'm thinking outside of the normal
outside of the top teams, yeah,
maybe South Africa because they are playing some good cricket right now, and they've got.
So if you had to choose right now, put you on the spot. I know it's a few months out; doesn't start until October, November. But who do you think is going to play in those semi-finals, and who do you think is going to win the whole thing? So your 4 teams to the semi-finals plus your winner:
Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and India. In some, obviously I don't know what brackets they are, but those are the teams I expect to be there. Just, I know England fans are gonna be sorry. They just do. I see less and less emphasis. I see just like Ben Stokes left the ODI team. I'm gonna start seeing some guys also leave the T20 team as well. Again, England has these phases where they just focus on tests. You know what I mean? And I think that's what's happening. I'm not saying McCullum is telling his players it's either the test squad or ODI or test squad. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but it seems like in the past they focus more on tests, and when they do, they forget about the other 2 formats. So, again, I'd like to say my West Indies. I don't see it. I see, Australia, New Zealand, India, and South Africa. And man, I'm gonna be a homer, and I root for Australia. So maybe an Australia repeat, honestly, because I'm telling you, Australia has looked so good, and they're not. It's their bowling, like their batting. Still, to your point, isn't up to snuff. You know what I mean? You've got a couple of guys. Again, Uzi had like I forgot what he had the last time in the last match. It was a test match actually. He had like 77, but You know what I mean? Like David Warner is getting older. Steve Smith is still inconsistent. If they could find any kind of inconsistency scoring
You
the
got
runs,
Marcus Stoinis as well, and Glenn
yeah, you got
Maxwell,
Stoinis.
Matthew Wade.
Yeah. But
Um,
their bowling attack is absolutely fierce, and they can bowl with anybody,
oh
man.
yeah,
So
Stark, Cummins, Hazelwood, and we'll
it, didn't the last champions West Indies repeated, right? So yeah, they won
yes,
it
they won
in
2012 and 2016.
2012, 2016. I'm calling it Australia repeat. They, back-to-back champions, just like the West Indies did. They got the strongest, and they got the pedigree of having just one being defending champs. Because if you get you're defending champs, you get straight through, don't you? You get all the way to the automatically qualified
The next stage,
to
Super
the
12.
next stage, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
12, right? Oh yeah, Australia's definitely going to be there in the semifinals, and I think it makes it so much easier for them to get through.
I think it could be the same as last year. Maybe, probably Pakistan or England may probably have a bad tournament maybe, but I think probably the same teams that featured last year. I think. And we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I hope Australia wins, goes back to back. But I'm already happy that they won T20 World Cup already.
Like I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take that trophy.
But we got to repeat what we did in 2015, winning a home 50 over World Cup against New Zealand, which was a great final at the MCG. And that's where the final will be played for this T20 World Cup this
I
year.
mean, New Zealand, people knock them, but think about it. New Zealand had a heck of a last year because they lost the ODI championship and what was that, 2019 to England. Then they won the World Test Championship against India in
T20 World
England,
Cup final last year.
and then they
Lost
lost the
against
T20 World
Australia.
Cup against Australia. But they were there. Like that's a consistent team. That's why I never knocked New Zealand. They were there. And they made it to all three formats of the championship. So that's why I said, how do I not put them in there? You know what I mean? They're definitely going to get to the semifinals. And although right now, if I had to pick somebody today, I think South Africa looks like the best team. Man, they look good. But it's like you said, it's a long way off. And, guys get back into form, guys fall out of form, injuries happen. So who knows? But right now, South Africa looks scary, man. Scary.
Oh yeah, especially that series against England. They just were able to come back and win that series 2-1. Unfortunately for England, a lot of questions to answer. It's not easy when there's a new captain and coach, especially with Butler and Matthew Mott now. So they've got a lot of work to do, England. But that happens. They've been dominant for so long in one day in T20 cricket. You're going to have a patch where you're just going to drop off a bit. That happens. He also says, Gabe, he says, thank you, Jack and Gabe, for answering my questions. It's a pleasure, Powan. I have to leave. By the way, Gabe, I'm Powan, and I've already subscribed, been following CFA YouTube channel for a long time, and I've subscribed to it. Hopefully we can meet again. Appreciate it, Powan. I've been on Powan's channel myself. He's a great guy. Go check him out. Covers everything about Sri Lankan cricket, but also cricket in general. But thanks, Powan, for joining us. Take care. We hope to see you soon. We'll try and finish off these questions before we wrap up. There's a lot that people have answered here. Next question from Sports Bit: is baseball concept overhyped? To an extent, probably by the media. It was actually a journalist who came up with the term. So yes, it is probably overhyped. Well, that's what journalists and the media do, isn't it, Gabe? They overhype.
They need a story. They need a story. And I even think that McCullum mentioned that, he didn't turn baseball. Some journalists did it.
No.
It's just a more aggressive style of play. We're not going to lay back and, look to draw or look to, not lose games. We're going to go out and try to win games. And I mean, that's the right mentality. But, when you're basically watching guys try and play T20 cricket while they're playing tests, you're like, what is going on? And, guys getting out on, 3 or 4 deliveries and just, it's overhyped. It's not working.
Yeah. Bendover says, Gabe, will you be doing India versus Pakistan Asia Cup match? I think he means streaming it, I think. Or
hopefully, Nick and I are looking to get back into the streaming game. I'm actually leaving town next week, second. It's my son's first college football game, but on the 2nd of September, so that's 2 weeks away. But yeah, we're looking to get some more streaming. Then the first few weeks of school are always hectic for us. But yeah, hopefully we'll be streaming and back up on it by the time the series starts.
Yep, it starts actually at the end of this month,
At the end
27th,
of
I
the month,
think,
yeah.
of August, Asia Cup. Pulish Singh says, my question, do you see people preferring leagues of international cricket? Where do we stand on that right now? What do you think on
Yes,
that, Gabe? Do you
yes, I
think
can tell
we
you right now.
prefer leagues of international cricket at this stage?
I think that the more casual fans do, right? Um, Easier to follow. Simple as that. If I'm only following, let's say, the BBL or the IPL, or even the CPL, it's just easier to follow, and it's a shorter season than trying to follow. You know, think about it. It's not. For example, the next World Cup isn't for 3 years, so you'd have to follow, 3 years to know the standings, who's in, who's out, stuff like that. So it just bodes for the more casual fan. And the reality is nowadays people are so busy. I think the casual fans are, really the target audience, because you always gonna get the hardcore fans. Hardcore fans are gonna be hardcore fans. They're gonna find it even when it's not on TV or when it's not on YouTube, or they're gonna
Yeah.
find it where to watch their game. So I think that cricket boards and ICC's job is to get those casual fans. Oh,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, the casual fans right now are more preferring leagues, domestic leagues over international cricket. So ICC has to figure out how to fix that.
The balance, getting the balance right between the two. Because the IPL is expanding, like into June. It's like half the year already.
Really, they're
By
gonna
the
have
end,
more games?
they're going to have more games, and they've had a bigger window. So it starts
Oh
in
wow,
late March to June, early June, or something like
wow! I didn't realize that they were gonna go
that.
that long. So they've
Because
added
that's
some
what they
more
said
games.
in the when they announced the schedule for the next 4 years. They said it's going to be. I got it in front of me here. The middle of March, right through to the start of June every year between next year up until 2027.
Wow,
And by probably after 2027, it may be a whole year league. I've heard some people talk about that.
no way, no way.
Well, they're thinking about that. It's the IPL; they can do whatever they want. But
I mean, yeah, they could do whatever they want. I The reason
and
I
they, and they're
say no
starting to
way,
buy other T20 franchises as well. Gabe, have you heard about
yeah,
that
they've got their own out here. They've got
in
their
South
own here in
Africa, the
USA.
UAE?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah, yeah.
crazy.
So, dude, they've got that dough. And I think they got the right formula. They realized what the IPL did that's so successful. And I think that what they've done is that they've turned cricket into a television product. And they've made it so that it's not just the game, but the fanfare, right? Where you can get your casual fan in there, you can get the kids in there, you even get the non-sports people uh excited about it, because you've got celebrities like SKR attached to a team. And I remember watching videos where they've got music videos for the songs and stuff like that for the teams. I mean, and the NFL to a certain extent, NFL did the same thing. They had Monday Night Football. They'd have bands come out, different songs, the Super Bowl halftime show. They understand that you're selling is entertainment. All right, the sport's the
Mm.
sport. You know what I mean? The sport's the sport. You're gonna have those fans that are loyal to the sport and will watch the sport. Now, how do we get the people that are just looking for entertainment and not necessarily hardcore sports fan? That's what the IPL has done well. They're really good at selling that entertainment. Case in point, man, the auction. The auction is one of the funnest things, and not even no American sport even has it. And it just changes the complete dynamic of going in there, watching those owners, and
Yeah.
bid for players, and watching people sweat. And it was so much fun. So I think that, and they televised that and got huge hits on it. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Well, they're starting to do that, not like an auction, but the BBL's doing a draft this BBL at the end of the first ODI between Australia and Zimbabwe. They're going to be broadcasting that.
And kind of like the NFL draft, I heard, where they're not bidding on players, but people are just drafting players. And even that's exciting. Yeah, the NFL draft also. You watch the NFL draft, man, thousands of people go to it. Thousands. And millions of people watch it. Who's my team going to get? Yeah, get the fans involved. Make it, once again, make it an entertainment. And once you understand that, you know what I mean? It's like Vince McMahon. Once you understand that it's about entertainment, not just actual sport, you start selling it as entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they Cricket Australia fought well, just change it up a bit to get more of the international players in. There's a lot of international players that are put their hand up for the draft. So we'll be streaming that on the podcast, by the way, everyone. The timings for that are on our YouTube channel, so you can see when we're streaming that. So yeah, be interesting. But I think it's the way of the future. I think we're going to see more and more leagues, unfortunately, and probably T20 cricket take over, which is hopefully doesn't happen, but it's looking like that by the day, given how many T20 internationals are being played in this next 4-year cycle, given how many T20 leagues are popping up, and the IPL expanding as well. It doesn't look good. I hope that's not the case, but it's money. T20 cricket brings in money, crowds. It's convenient. Yeah.
As long as it doesn't mean to end the test, I'm okay with it.
Well, that could be under threat as well, Gabe, maybe, because then players will probably leave their country and probably don't play Test cricket anymore.
See, that's what I'd be afraid of. But honestly,
shares the same thoughts, I think.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to see that. But
if
we lose some ODI games and if we lose some T20 games, so be it. You know what I mean?
Right. But not Test matches, not Test cricket.
No. Need me the matches, Daddy. I need them.
The sports breakdown again. Regarding on coaches, do you think that teams should try to have separate coaches for Test cricket and limited overs cricket, coaches who are specialised in that format, just like what England are doing? What are your thoughts on that, Gabe? Because I think I had this discussion with Nick, I think, when I was on the live stream with him a few months ago, I think.
He asked me this question as well.
Do you like it? Do you like separate coaches? Do you want just the one coach because you think it's just different styles or different sort of characters?
Here's what I don't like. If you've got the same coach, then I believe the same coach is going to emphasize the importance of every format, right? But when you have separate coaches, let's be real, McCullum probably gets his pick of the litter what players he's going to be able to get to select for the Test side. And Test is going to take priority over the ODI side. So that coach is kind of going to be left, shorthanded. And we kind of saw it in this last series where there were players that did not make the short bus ride, for the India right after the Test series, right? They could have made the short bus ride, and instead they didn't. But yet India had some of those players that were in the Test match actually play also in the was it in a T20 match or ODI? I can't remember which one came first. T20, it might have been the T20. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, what's going on here? How could India have some of the same players that played Test in this lineup, but England can't, and they're at home? That didn't make sense. So I could already see a conflict of interest, Jack, where you're going to have preferential treatment given to Baz, and I can't call them Baz Ball's what they call it. It's McCullum, Brendan McCullum. But I can see Brendan McCullum saying, no, Bairstow's playing Test. That's it. I need to set him up, or, obviously Stewart and Jimmy only played Test, but maybe another bowler that, may play for both sides and could be used on both sides. Like, nah, I think you already saw Stokes walk away from ODI. That hurts the ODI team. That hurts, their chances. So I don't like it. What are your thoughts?
I know that Australia doesn't do it. I think Andrew McDonald said one coach for 3, but then you put on the workload and management of that individual, sort of like JL. How he was intense and running all 3 formats. That probably didn't help him in the end, being too tense with players and that. cricket is becoming specialised, I think, Gabe. You have specialist test players, specialist ODI players, specialist T20 players.
Yeah.
And you probably have specialist coaches as well that can suit those particular formats. So I think that's where we're going.
It's a good argument.
Many people like the idea. England are experimenting with it because they were keen to do this, and they did have Brendan McCullum as coach of the Test side. I thought he was going to be coach of the ODI and T20 side, given how he's got that background in those formats.
Yeah, he recently just coached in the
KKR.
IPL, KKR. So I was like, wait, it's not, why wouldn't he a coach? I just didn't make sense. Like I understand,
but they went with him with a Test mentality because he's got a triple century in Test cricket. He can bat. Right. He's got the fastest Test century ever.
Yeah, for sure. He's got the pedigree, but he's also got the experience coaching in the IPL, which is a T20 format. So why wouldn't they just hand the reins over to him? Or maybe he didn't want it. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
No, I think they just wanted him to do the Test side of things. And they got Matthew Mott, who was the women's coach for Australia and who led them to success. And he's a well-respected coach himself. He's got high credentials. So they wanted him to do that. And I don't have any problems with that. Look, it doesn't concern me because it's England. I don't care what they do because I hate England. Yeah. Everyone hates England, especially if it's the Ashes, and I hope Australia beat them like we did last summer. But it could be a different story in England next year. But that's their mentality. That's what they want to do. Other cricketing countries are not doing it, but I think we should see more of it because it's becoming more specialised, I think. Because you think about it, you have a specialist coach. Their thought process, their way of thinking is for that one particular format because they're exponents of it. Whereas you have someone who's played all three, it's sort of all over the place.
I see the merit to your argument. The only thing I'm thinking to myself is, though, you're still going to come up with conflicts between coaches.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And who gets, priority. Sometimes you've got a Test series, and a ODI series or a T20 series almost, simultaneous, right? Or back to back. Who gets it? It's logistically, I think it could be a nightmare, but that's,
The next question we're getting through them, Gabe. A lot of people had a lot of questions, which is great. How long we've been here? 3 hours. We've played a long innings today.
Long innings.
We're still batting. We're getting to the close of play. It's nearly like 6 hours. So close of a Test match. Getting to stumps. Powan from the Sports Breakdown says, cricket is a worldwide sport. 108 nations play cricket, yes. Full members and associate members are approved by the ICC. How did the Olympic officials?
How the heck? I think heck's
I wasn't sure it was a swear word or not because it's a family program. I wasn't sure.
That's allowed. That's allowed.
How the heck did the Olympics officials didn't include cricket way earlier compared to football, meaning soccer? Your thoughts on that, Gabe? Because soccer is more popular than cricket worldwide?
Well, yes. Come on. Soccer is the most popular sport in the world. I mean, bottom line, you know what I mean? And it's so funny when soccer first got introduced here in America, Americans, soccer wasn't big, football was not big here. And it was like, nobody understood the push behind it. But obviously people needed to realize, like, look, it is the most popular sport in the world. If you take the collective amount of nations that play soccer, you know what I mean? It's the biggest amount of people. I mean, it's the biggest amount of fans. So I understand, no question. I do understand why soccer went to the Olympics. Now, some of the other sports that they put in there,
like we mentioned earlier, like kickboxing, flag football, which is
flag football, which is
I've played flag football in PE in school. It's like gridiron, isn't it? But it's just flag. It's just tags, really.
Yeah. Exactly. I didn't see that.
Break dancing doesn't make sense.
When you said break dancing, I laughed. Bro. I was like, what?
Well, that's what it said in the article. We're considering break dancing as one of the 9 sports that's competing with cricket.
Yeah. That
doesn't make sense, doesn't it? And motor racing? lacrosse.
Motor racing. That's. Now I think you said motorbike racing, right? Or was it just motor?
No, it was
racing?
motor racing. I think it's like cars. I think. That's
Okay,
what they
yeah.
said. I got it in front of me here. What do they say? Yeah, motorsport. Sorry, motorsport.
Motorsports. I'm like, yeah, no, can't do it. Can't do it.
It doesn't
Get
make
it
any
right.
sense.
Get it right.
And even at
Olympic.
these last Olympics, they had rock climbing, didn't they? Rock climbing.
Yeah, they did have rock climbing. Yeah, I was
They
like,
did. And then they had 3-on-3 basketball. I remember.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, basketball has been in the Olympics for a while, but they had the 3-on-3 basketball. I don't know why though, because they have had basketball in the Olympics. So why did they have the 3-on-3? That's interesting.
No, but I think it would be good for cricket getting that out there because the Olympics is a global event every 4 years, but it hasn't been back since 1900. So I believe France won the gold medal in that game because France played cricket. No, they did. They're the cricket gold medal champions, Olympic champions, I should say, in cricket.
Oh my!
The French.
That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable.
But I think the women's team for Australia will probably win gold medal in the women's event if it does go to the Olympics. And for the men's, it's up for grabs, I suppose. But let's hope it is in the Olympics, so it will be good. As I said earlier, not sure for LA, but very confident for Brisbane in 2032 because of the cricketing background. The committee are from Australia, and they say, yeah, of course we're going to have cricket in there.
Yeah.
We need you, Gabe and Nick,
to push it,
to go to that presentation and say, all right, this is what we want USA cricket in the Olympics 2028. Get the USA team in there.
Like I said, the other day, I was just happened to be flipping through ESPN while I was getting some work done. And it wasn't on ESPN, like the Plus or anything like that, just ESPN. And it was, I forgot what game they were streaming. And I'm like, the IPL is on ESPN Plus. And, I'm telling you, man, the right media people it was like the rundown. I think it was the rundown they call it, where they have like the best highlights of the day. And it was like a catch. I forgot who made it, but they're paying attention. They're paying attention. And the fact that the right people are paying attention, and you got names like ESPN, who's huge in sports out here, you can see within it that they're angling for it. So, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, we will. The next question from Bender over here. He says, ODI cricket hate is beyond me. It used to be the mecca of cricket and have given the best memories to their fans. And it has the best trophy, which is the World Cup. It does. It has that history because of what happened in the early days of the World Cup, with the West Indies winning the first two, then India winning out of nowhere in 83, and then Australia in 87. And then it was Pakistan in 92, Sri Lanka in 96, Australia 99, Australia 2003, Australia 2007, India 2011, Australia 2015, 2019 England, and 2023 in India. Let's see who wins. Those are all the World Cup winners, Gabe, from start to finish.
Wow, great memory. I just know that the first two were the West Indies, and then of course, again, Nick and I watched the film '83 based on the run that again West Indies were the favorites to win, and India comes in and beats the West Indies, which is unheard of, but it happened. And and then of course the most recent was the 2019 when controversially England beats New Zealand. So those are the four that always stick out in my mind. Those are the four ODI championships I could remember. And listen, there's no hate from me, Bendover. I'll take it. You know what I mean? I enjoy it. I just think that it's going to be the format that suffers the most because it's a quote unquote not a TV product, and there's so much cricket nowadays. Something is going to sacrifice. Maybe it's not though. Maybe it's just T20 cricket that's going to take the hit. You know what I mean? I hope it isn't Test, but something will take a hit. So, but that's just maybe I'm wrong.
Something's going to give, really. I think someone said that. Something's going to give. Otherwise, it's not sustainable, and you can't have it keep going like that. He also says, Bendover, how quickly fans have forgotten how entertaining the 2015. Yes, I can contest for that. That was an exciting World Cup at home in Australia, and 2019 World Cup was. You can't get that entertainment in T20 cricket. This is the thing. You ask people this question, Gabe. Would you rather watch an ODI or a T20 match? People will say, I watch an ODI match.
Right.
Most people will say that because of that sort of thing with T20 cricket, that love-hate relationship. It's a waste of time. Why do we have it?
Right. I told you. I thought it was Ian Bishop, but no, you're right. It was Michael Holding.
It's Michael Holding.
He hates T20. He loves. I like that. That's a better word. He
loves
T20
it. He loves it.
So
I like saying that. He loves it. He absolutely. I think he lashed out when he was commentating once. I think there's a clip on YouTube about it. When the West Indies were playing a match and some of the players were playing the IPL, he lashed out during a one-day match. So
wow.
He doesn't hold back, Michael Holding. He tells it how it is.
I love it.
It's sad that he's retired from commentary now. He was a good commentator.
That's so funny.
One of the four horsemen, of course, Fire in Babylon.
Right.
Jeez, you don't want to face Michael Holding. Oh, yeah, that's horrible. He also says, bend over. ODI World Cup is by far the biggest trophy for cricketers and fans, and no T20s can take that away from us. Yeah, yeah, it is. T20 World Cup, you have that as well, but yeah, that's the thing. Really, it's sort of that battle that we're having, isn't it? Between the two, it's people's choice and preferences. I prefer all three. Most people don't. They prefer just two, and that's without T20 cricket. So, I don't know what the future has in store for cricket, but definitely ODIs. They still have a place, but I think we're just being reactive a bit because of what happened with Ben Stokes. That's just how I see it.
Right.
And Kushil says, Gabe, what's your thoughts about cricket going the soccer way and leagues taking over international cricket?
Here's the thing. La Liga, right, is the Mexican league, right, where the Mexican players play. My nephew, Savannah's nephew, John Raquinho Jr., right out of high school, had a scholarship, full ride to go play at UCLA. He decided to turn pro, and he actually went to play for the Tijuana Cholos, which is in La Liga. Then, of course, you've got the Premier League. Then, you've got all these different leagues. But I think that it's done correctly because those domestic leagues help, produce just the best possible players for the international league, if that makes sense. And, has it taken away from the World Cup? No, World Cup's still the biggest thing every 4 years. People, flock to it. I was mad. I had a chance to go to the World Cup in Brazil. Tickets paid. All I had to do was get out there. I just couldn't get the time off of work. I'm so mad. It's one of the experiences of my life is I missed. My brother-in-law had tickets, and Savannah's brother, my wife's brother, played college football, and again, her family's football or soccer royalty. They got a few pro players that have played in her family, including her grandfather. So, I think it's actually smart because this way you build the fan base from the ground up, right? You've got your fan base rooting for their homegrown players, and then eventually those players will go on the international stage, and then you follow them that way. I don't think you build it the other way around. International players down to domestic, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? But that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And we're there, Gabe. A long marathon. The last comment that Powan from the Sports Breakdown said, great cricket discussion, Jack and Gabe. It's already 2 hours long, and it's now 3, actually. Seems like cricket never dies in this channel. No, it doesn't, Powan. We always talk about cricket. It never dies. Long live cricket. Long live this glorious game.
Absolutely.
But I think that's just about done, Gabe. That's everyone's questions. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, watching. We've had some people that have come and interacted with me and Gabe. Sorry about the start of the delay at the start because Gabe was getting ready in that, and I was as well. But we got there in the end. But Gabe, thanks for joining me as always. Where can people find you? Cricket for Americans and Nick, Boring Reviews, The Final Reaction.
CFA, Boring Reviews, Final Reaction. We're getting back to live streams pretty soon. Nick's always doing his thing. Cricket Tuesdays every Tuesday. Never miss one of those. Yeah, check out the content. We have a lot of fun. Guys, it is. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to do another live stream. So just look out for that live stream coming out. And then who knows? Maybe it might be in the Asia Cup, hopefully.
Hopefully. But thanks everyone for tuning in to a live stream of the podcast. A reminder, we're going to be doing more live streams during the Australian summer. We're going to be streaming the ODI series between Australia and Zimbabwe and Australia and New Zealand. And then obviously we'll be doing some more matches throughout the summer. Obviously T20 World Cup as well. There's a big summer of cricket. You're going to catch that all on the podcast. I'm trying my best. I'm a one-man ship here. We're trying our best. As we discussed earlier, there's a lot of cricket on. I can't cover everything. Also, we're doing cricket roundups where I've been recapping the cricketing news from the week. I don't think there'll be a cricket roundup coming out this week. I think it will be coming out next week. I'm busy with other stuff. Obviously, this live stream today's taken out of me, so I probably won't record today's cricket roundup for everyone who's looking forward to that. That's going to be out every Sunday at 6 o'clock, wherever you are in the world. Make sure you click the bell and you don't miss out on that.
Give them a quick cricket roundup here at the end of this stream. South Africa is scary, and man, England sucks. Done. That's it. Nothing else to know. Done. All the news I need to know.
I think we've pretty much covered what I was going to say in the cricket roundup this week.
Exactly.
We talked about England, South Africa. We talked about the Future Tours program. We talked about the West Indies, New Zealand T20 and ODI series. So pretty much I've done the cricket roundup today on this live stream, everyone. So I don't need to record another episode. It's already taken care of. And for me, I don't even have to edit the video. Doing a live stream, you don't even have to edit it. It just comes out on YouTube. But thanks, Gabe, for joining today. It's been great fun, as always, talking cricket with you. And I hope everyone enjoyed it. We've gone for 3 hours and 26 minutes. That's the longest live stream I've done thus far. And Gabe's done longer live streams. I remember the IPL final, Gabe, you and me. We did it for 5 hours.
Woo! Yeah, it was.
We were waiting for the presentations, were we?
We were waiting for the presentations.
And like it didn't happen.
The IPL auction is probably, I can't wait to do another one, dude. And
actually, 10 hours.
I'm actually excited to do the Big Bash, man. Let me know, text me. Hopefully I can try to fit it into my schedule. But I'd like to see the draft, because drafts are so much fun. And the fortunes of just getting one or two players could make such a difference, man. One or two, building your team, you know what I mean? And you want this player, and then your team, pivots, and oh no, why this guy? And how? Definitely let me know, because I know that you were planning on live streaming it. I'd love to join you for a little while of it. And do you even know, how do the teams decide who gets the first pick? Is it like a lottery?
They've already done a lottery, so they pick the teams in their order. So the Melbourne Renegades are first, and then so-and-so. I think the Adelaide Strikers, which is my team, are in fifth. That's order of preference. And then I haven't read into it. I've only seen it briefly, but that's how they've done it.
I was going to say, how about my Melbourne Stars? How about my Melbourne Stars,
Yeah, they didn't have a great season last season. Glenn Maxwell played well.
That's what I'm saying. Ew.
But hopefully they can win a title. They haven't won one ever.
No, I know. And the only reason I chose him the first year Nick and I watched the BBLs because Uzi was on the team. And, I love me some Uzi. That's it. That's my guy. No questions. Done. Melbourne Stars.
He didn't play for the Stars. He played for the Thunder.
Was he on the Thunder? I thought he was on the.
He played for the Thunder. Now he plays for the Brisbane Heat now for this season. They signed him.
I thought he was with the Stars. Who was with the Stars then? Why did I choose the Stars?
Well, you think about Bravo. Dwayne Bravo played for them. For the Stars.
Maybe it was Bravo. There's a reason I went with that team. But yeah, listen. It just depends. But here's the thing: picking at the end sometimes. Let's say I personally never want to be in the middle of a draft. If it's a draft, you always want to be on the ends. You want to pick first or last. And the reason for that is because then you get to kind of dictate the way the draft goes. Where if you pick last, right? Let's say you get the 12th pick, or there's 8 teams in the BBL, right? Let's say you get the 8th pick. So you're going to turn around and get the 8th, 9th pick. And then if you get the first pick, it's going to be a while before you get that next pick. But then if you get the first pick, you would get the 18th pick, but then you get the first 18th and 19th. Boom, boom. So you get to kind of dictate your needs that way and get multiple picks. I love having multiple picks. I hate being in the middle where you're just like, when stuff's going around you, I'm like, no, that's the last all-rounder left. No. And there's still like,
Yeah. I've got it in
picks.
front of me here. How it will work. It's basically an overseas draft. So, obviously, so basically it will be held on the August the 28th after the first one day between Australia and Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So basically how it will work is that there are 4 rounds of the draft with 1 pick per club in each round. Clubs may elect to pass in certain rounds, but each club must pick 2 or 3 players in the draft. So round 1, they've got like different tiers, like platinum only. Right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Rounds 2 to 4 will follow a snaking order. Eligible players categories for each round are round 2, platinum or gold. Round 3, gold or silver. Round 4, silver or bronze. And I'll just keep going like a snake sort of thing, really.
Yeah, serpentine or snake draft, as they call it. So that's why if you're at the ends, whether you're first or last, you get those multiple picks, and you kind of dictate the draft that way.
Yeah.
And
So the order of the draft is that the lottery results. It's the sorry, I can't even say it. Let me rewind. Melbourne Renegades. It's a long stream, everyone. It's a long stream. It's a long innings. Melbourne Renegades, number 1. Your Melbourne Stars, Gabe.
Yeah.
Number 2. Pick number 2.
Ooh, that's good because you're at the ends. So that means you get the second pick, and then you
Brisbane
get the
Heat, number 3. Sydney Sixers, number 4. My Adelaide Strikers, number 5.
Okay, middle. You don't want to get stuck in the middle.
No, Perth Scorchers, number 6. Sydney Thunder, number 7. The Hobart Hurricanes, number 8. And then obviously it's the same order in the
reverse,
Yeah, so the first round, platinum only. Melbourne Renegades are in the front. Then round 2, you have the Melbourne Renegades again. And then round 3, you have the Hobart Hurricanes.
Whoa, wait. So in the first 2 rounds,
the first 2 rounds is the same order, but the third round it flips. So the last team goes first, and the first team goes last.
And then it becomes rounds. And then it becomes
that's only for round 3, but for round 4, it's back to the same order as it was in the first 2 rounds.
Oh, that's brutal. That is brutal if you're a bottom team.
That's how they've done it. Is that how a normal draft works? Because I've never really got my head around the draft concept. Really.
No, it's supposed to be if I get the first pick, it's a snake pick. So let's say 12 teams. If I get the first pick, then technically I don't get my next pick, my second round pick, until the 24th pick. Because it's supposed to be 1 through team 12. Team 12, who's got the last pick. Arguably, since you got the last pick, you get the very next pick. So you get to pick twice before the team that got the number 1 pick, who obviously got the best player, gets to pick their second player. And then it goes back and forth as a snake order. You know what I mean? But this way, you're giving basically the top 2 teams in the Melbourne Renegades and Melbourne Stars 2 picks in the first round and in the second round, back to back. That's brutal. That's bad.
And then in the last round, it's the same order as it was for the first 2 in round 4. Whereas round 3, it's reversed. It's the last team.
So only round 3 does the last. Oh, that is not a good. Oh,
but it's something exciting, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, it'll still be exciting. It'll still be exciting for sure. But I'm just like, that's a disadvantage to those teams at the bottom because you only get that 1 pick where you get to pick first. You know what I mean? So it's like,
well, that's how they've done it. And you're allowed 1 retention as well. You can retain players, like in the IPL, you can retain players, whatever.
Right.
So I hope the Adelaide Strikers. It says, I'm reading cricket.com.au article here. It says, "Fear not, Adelaide Strikers fans. Each club is entitled to 1 retention pick." I hope they retain Rashid Khan because he plays for the Adelaide Strikers. So that's going to be something big. So they say, for example, if Rashid Khan is picked by a club before the Strikers have selected in that round, the Strikers will be able to retain him and the initial club will get to pick him again. However, if the strikers don't select Rashid with their pick, a club that is picking after them could not take him, and the strikers would not be able to use their retention option.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it does. It makes all the sense in the world. But the strikers got the first pick, so they're going to keep Rashid Khan. Why wouldn't they?
Hopefully, because we need him.
They're insane.
We got Travis Head, and we also got him. So they said how much the overseas players will be paid. Cricket Australia said has not publicly confirmed the exact salary amounts, but each has been widely reported that platinum level selections will earn like 340,000 Australian dollars for their BBL stint, with a portion of that to be paid by CA. And bronze selections, the lowest salary band, will earn a six-figure sum. So you still get paid a lot, but not as much as the IPL. You can't compete with that.
But 100 six figures is at least 100 grand. 100 grand, and correct me if I'm wrong, BBL is 2 weeks shorter than the IPL.
It's the same length as the current IPL. Really?
Oh, really?
It's the same length, same games, but it doesn't have 2 extra teams. It has 8, basically. Okay. So 2 less teams, but same duration and length. It goes from December to February, start of February.
But if there's 2 less teams, it's less. It's not the same amount.
Yeah. So it said, can Australian players enter the draft? Will there be a local draft for local players? No, it's just only for overseas. So hopefully it will be a good thing. Really, that they're sort of really keen on this. Really. Kyron Pollard's entered the draft.
Why not, bro? If he goes as a platinum level player, that's 300 grand. Even if he goes as a bronze level player, 100 grand. You think he don't need 100? Everybody needs 100 grand. What are you kidding me?
Well, he's earned a lot of money from his IPL stints and that, has he?
Yeah, and he could still use more. Listen, people don't understand. Just taxes take so much of that money, and then you got family and this and that. I guarantee you that he could use 100 grand.
And they also said, why don't they do it like an IPL auction? Well, basically, it's a salary cap. Around 1.9 million for each squad of 18 players, with a portion of that to be capped and reserved for international players. So, it's never going to, they also said this type of draft is also common in other franchise competitions, like the 100 and the Pakistan Super League. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there with the draft. But hopefully, Andre Russell, I think he's entered. There's a long list of players who are making themselves available for the draft, this BBL. But that's happening on the August 28th. We'll be live streaming that after we live stream the first innings of Australia and Zimbabwe, everyone. The timings for that are already on our YouTube channel. So get ready for that. Let's see what happens. Let's see who gets picked, retained, or whatever. But it seems interesting. So it's going to be an interesting sort of thing, really. Let's see if it makes the Big Bash different or makes it better. I don't know. But
let's hope the Melbourne Stars makes the right pick so that they can win their first ever championship. If Rashid Khan is not retained,
I think he'll be retained by the Adelaide Strikers. I think Rashid Khan. He likes playing in Adelaide, so I think they'll retain him. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Doesn't Nick go for the Sydney Sixers?
Yeah, he likes the Sydney Sixers.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, they didn't win last year. It was the Perth Scorchers, but they're probably the favourites to win again, the Sydney Sixers. But that's going to happen in the near future. But thanks for joining us, everyone. We've streamed for 3 hours, which is longer than I expected, but we had so many questions. And Gabe's a veteran. He plays the long innings and all that stuff. He streamed the IPL final for 10 hours. I mean, auction for
10 hours. I did indeed. But
it
guys,
was a funny stream, but the sun came up as you were doing it.
I remember I was like, oh, wow, it's been a minute.
But, anyway, Gabe, the final words are with you, my friend.
Man, thanks for having me. So much fun talking cricket with you. I think the thing about cricket is that whatever format you love, the IPL, what's T20 league, domestic leagues, the 100 we were talking about just now, BBL, or traditional formats like, of course, Test and ODI. There's always something for everybody. You know what I mean? So, guys, keep my girl Renelle in the chat. What up, Renelle?
Renelle, how you going, Renelle? Thanks, Renelle, for your support.
Keep tuning in, and keep supporting those teams, and eventually they'll get better. Hopefully.
Yes, it is a great game, cricket. But thanks to everyone. My voice is gone, so that's an indication I should wrap up. But obviously, my voice is gone. So yeah, thanks everyone who's contributed in the chat, asking Gabe questions. Go check Nick and Gabe out. I've been on their channel. I consider them to be friends. They support me in the channel tremendously. I thought, well, get that Gabe on, because Gabe hasn't been on the channel since that interview we did a year ago. Go check that out. That was a fun chat that I did with Nick and Gabe a year ago. And check out the other chats that we've done with Mary Walden, Daryl Harper, Tom Scully, who else? Graham Winter, the sports psychologist I had, Mark Boynes from Opening Up. We've interviewed a lot of people. Someone said to me in the comments of one of my episodes, they said, you got any other guests planned? In terms of that, I'm not sure. We'll see. Let's see if we can get some players back on. But, dare to dream, I suppose.
Yeah, why not? Why not, man? Shoot for the stars. You know what I'm saying? Shoot for the stars. If you fall short, at least you land on the move. So that's how I always do it.
Well, you don't know if you don't ask, I suppose.
Exactly.
But thanks, everyone, commenting. Everyone, Renelle, thanks for dropping by. The Sports Breakdown, Powan, Bendover, Jihan, who commented earlier, Purelish. Who else? I think I've mentioned everyone. The sports bit as well.
Yeah.
Thunder Hayes. Yeah. So, and Sadaf earlier, the direct hit as well. Thanks everyone for joining us. Stay tuned. We'll be doing some more live streams in the near future. Until then, make sure you like and share our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Most of the podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts, as you can see along the bottom of your screen. So go and check us out there. Subscribe to our channel as well. We want to try and get the runs up, so to speak. Currently at 335. Varun, thanks for watching. Thanks for dropping by as well. Appreciate it. Thanks for your support as well. To everyone, once again, thanks. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, follow us on our social media platforms, and that. Go check out Cricket for Americans, Boring Reviews, The Final Reaction. Nick and Gabe do tremendous stuff in terms of cricket, but also films as well, if you like that. Their reviews are very insightful, as well as their cricket analysis as well. So thanks again, everyone. Gabe, I leave it to you. The final words to sign us out, as always.
That's 6 runs.
Bye, everyone.